Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you doing? It's awesome.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
I'm not trying to speak this in. I'm not doing that.
Don't do that. Very quickly. This is maybe one of, I don't know.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
And this is on 80. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You ready? Good evening. The public safety meeting is about to be called to order. Today is Monday, September 12th. The Public Safety Commission is called to order, and we begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood, is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Kritz people. Now the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we all stand? I pledge allegiance to the United States of
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's been a long time since third grade. Commission Secretary, can we get roll call, please?
Commissioner Berger? Here. Commissioner Oliver?
Here.
Commissioner Roman? Here. Vice Chair Balbone?
Present.
Chair Hallman?
Present.
Please note that Commissioner Soon-Shiong and Commissioner Steele are absent today.
Thank you. Approval of our agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commission Secretary, can we get roll call again, please?
Commissioner Berger?
Here.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Commissioner Roman?
Here.
Vice Chair Balbone?
Here.
Commissioner
Here.
Chair Hallman?
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to our minutes from August 8th? Commissioners?
No changes. I move that we approve the minutes as is.
Okay. Do we have a second to approve the minutes?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you. Commission Secretary, may I please get a roll call?
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Commissioner Roman?
Here.
Vice Chair Balbone?
Yes.
Chair Hallman?
Present.
The minutes have been approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Secretary, do we have public comments this evening?
We do. We have one public comment in chambers, and we have quite a few on Zoom. Would you like to start in chambers?
In chambers, please. And do we know our count on Zoom?
Let's see. We have 7.
Okay, thank you. So we can start with our first person in chambers, and you will have 3 minutes.
Okay. Actually, they're all on Zoom.
Oh, they're all on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. Great, so let's start with our first Zoom. Public comment, please.
Hi, we will start with Yola Dore, general speaking comment. Yola, if you can please press *6 and begin your public comment. Yola, again, if you could please press *6 to unmute yourself, and you'll be allowed 3 minutes to begin your public comment. Okay, Chair, so we're going to move to the next speaker, and maybe Yola will be able to unmute herself after this. So we're going to go to the next speaker, Gabby Lazary, phone number ending in 8772. If you could please press *6 to unmute yourself, you'll have 3 minutes to begin your public comment.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabby and I'm currently studying political science and Middle Eastern studies at UCLA. So firstly, I would like to thank the West Hollywood Public Safety Commission for fighting anti-Semitism and for supporting IRA. As a Jewish person, supporting the IRA definition is especially important to me because I believe that it's the lack of education and misinformation that sparks anti-Semitism on campus. I remember being afraid to tell people I was Jewish during my first year of college because of the false and sometimes hateful preconceived notions that others have and the stereotypes people often project onto Jewish people. Supporting this definition is in itself recognizing and fighting anti-Semitism as well as making others more aware of the struggles the Jewish community faces on a daily basis. Without the IRA definition, I worry and fear that others, specifically promoters of anti-Semitism, will work to define the terms in their own way, further fostering hate and bigotry. I urge you to continue standing with the Jewish community by upholding the IRA working definition. Thank you for your time and for supporting the fight against anti-Semitism.
Okay, thank you, Gabby. We're going to move on to our next speaker, Matyos Kidane, last 4 numbers ending in 5751. If you could please press *6 to unmute yourself and begin, you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Yeah, hi, this is Matyos. I'm an organizer with the Stop LGBT Spy Coalition and a Black LA County resident that actively engages in political activism and political work. And I'm urging the Commission to rescind the decision to recommend the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism to the City Council. We all, dislike anti-Semitism. We all want inclusion. We all want, everyone to be treated right. But this IHRA definition is vague. It's incoherent. It's prone to political abuse. And it's not meant to protect the Jewish community. It's being used in practice to silence advocacy for Palestinian freedom. It really can be reduced to being applied to folks who are just critical of the state of Israel, a state that has committed mass atrocities. That's widely accepted. And I just want to name, there's significant overlap between communities that fight for Black liberation, communities that fight for all progressive causes, and communities that fight for, against the racist violence perpetuated by police. And communities that fight for the liberation of Palestine. And this IHRA definition of anti-Semitism will definitely, definitively be weaponized against these groups, especially Black community members who are commonly criminalized and historically criminalized for political resistance. If West Hollywood is a progressive city, and if you want, your policies, your recommendations to align with your values, we kind of demand that you reject the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism and, prevent the further criminalization of political resistance. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Matyos, for your comment. We'll move on to the next speaker. Next speaker is Akhil Gopal. Last 4 digits of your phone number ending in 8399.
Not just kind of the general dynamics, but specifically.
I'm sorry, Akhil, are you still there? Ending in 8399, last 4 digits. If you can please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Akhil. I'm also a part of Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. We are here today in solidarity with Palestinian youth movement. And I want to first say that it's interesting that you started off this meeting with the land acknowledgement, which very accurately talks about how the land we are currently on, the land that West Hollywood is on, is unceded and occupied Tonga and Kichwa land. It's interesting because to say that Israel, which it is is currently occupying the unceded land of Palestinians, that is ethnically cleansing them all the time. This would be labeled by the definition that you were about to enact as anti-Semitism, because one of the examples of the IHRA definition is calling Israel a racist endeavor, which it actually is. And if you refuse to call it a racist endeavor, that is in fact genocide denial of the Palestinian Nakba, which is the ongoing ethnic cleansing and displacement and dispossession of Palestinian refugees going on at least 70 years, if not 100. Especially when we talk about the ethnic cleansing of 1948. So I mean, I'm so angry that you all are doing this and then trying to maintain this self-identification as a progressive city, starting off with a land acknowledgement and then proceeding to encode basically support for ethnic cleansing and genocide of another indigenous people. So in order to stand with the values that you proclaim, I also join in with Matios in demanding you rescind this decision to send the IHRA definition to the City Council and vote to reject this definition, which was designed first and foremost to criminalize Palestinians fighting for their own liberation. So I yield the rest of my time.
Great, thank you for your comment. The next speaker is Leora Bergstein. Last four digits of your telephone number are 6051. If you can please press *6. Yes, Leora, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Wonderful, thank you. Hi, my name is Leora Bergstein, and I'm a local Jewish West Hollywood resident. I urge the City of West Hollywood to maintain its support for the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. Opponents of this initiative have claimed that the IHRA definition is vague, impedes freedom of speech, and attempts to criminalize criticism against Israel. A simple reading of the IHRA definition will dispel these false and baseless claims. Anti-Semitism is a problem and it won't solve itself. And although less than 2% of the US population is Jewish, the FBI reports that 60% of religiously motivated crimes have been directed against Jews. As a Jew in West Hollywood, after moving here a year ago, when I first moved to LA, I was scared to try the local sushi restaurant just blocks from my apartment in West Hollywood because two Jewish men were attacked there for being Jewish. The definition, the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism includes examples that describe 11 ways in which anti-Semitism may manifest itself today. Some of the examples address contemporary anti-Semitism involving Israel, often treated as the Jewish collective, either by applying classic anti-Semitic slurs to the Jewish state itself, or targeting Jews collectively for real or imagined connection to Israel. These 11 examples help ensure that the definition is relevant today. The definition recognizes that criticism of Israel cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic, despite false claims that the IHRA definition also cannot criminalize anti-Semitic speech. It is simply a guiding tool for how to apply existing rules and laws where anti-Semitism may be involved. Without a consistent definition, those who perpetrate anti-Semitism will attempt to define the term to exclude their own bigotry, allowing them to perpetrate it. And as a Jewish resident of West Hollywood, I therefore ask that you uphold the IHRA working definition and take a stand against the world's oldest but ever-evolving hatred. Thank you.
Thank you, Leora. We're going to move on to our next speaker, who is Joseph Carland, last four digits ending in 3171. If you can please press *6 to unmute yourself, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello. I speak at this meeting to thank you for your continued support for the IHRA working definition of anti-Semitism. I am a student at a Los Angeles public high school. The IHRA working definition has assisted me when a student was called a dirty Jew, simply for having a connection to the state of Israel. With the use of the IHRA working definition, this incident was properly labeled and condemned for what it was, an act of Jew hatred. The IHRA working definition is a clear way to identify anti-Semitism in all its forms. It has been adopted by more than half of US states and is in use at many institutions of higher education around the country. Opponents of this initiative have claimed that the IHRA working definition is vague, impedes free speech, and attempts to stifle and criminalize criticism against Israel. A simple reading of the definition will prove these baseless claims to be false. The definition explicitly states that criticism of Israel, similar to criticism leveled at other countries, cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. However, it also recognizes the reality that rhetoric and actions related to Israel sometimes crosses the line into bigotry against Jews. Without the IHRA definition, Jew haters can hide behind their own narrow definitions of what anti-Semitism is, leaving Jewish people exposed and targeted by these anti-Semites. The IHRA definition covers anti-Semitism across the political spectrum and includes 11 examples that describe how this bigotry occurs today. These examples reflect the real-life experiences of Jewish people in West Hollywood and around the world. The IHRA definition cannot criminalize any form of speech. It is simply a tool to identify and educate about anti-Semitism and can help identify when anti-Semitism may be involved. I urge you to continue standing with the Jewish community against anti-Semitism by upholding the IHRA working definition. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph, for your comment. We'll move on to the next speaker, Celine Cassini, last four digits ending in 5231. If you could please press *6 to unmute yourself, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm calling in today to also, as a concerned community member, as a youth organizer, to urge you all to rescind the decision to recommend the city's adoption of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. We're calling in opposition to this definition. Our concern is that with the adoption of this definition, any speech that is critical of Israel or supportive of Palestinian rights will be censored and falsely labeled as anti-Semitic. This definition has already largely been weaponized against students, professors, activists, on-campus activities across the U.S. This is largely a tool for censorship, not safety, and many of the most vocal proponents of this definition openly support its use as a censorship tool, and the definition is most often used to silence Palestinian human rights advocates. Concerns that the IHRA definition will be used for censorship and censorship of constitutionally protected speech are not abstract, they're not theoretical, they're based on actual experience, and there are several examples of how this definition has been used to censor and criminalize, and I'm going to list a couple. So, for example, there was a lawsuit brought forward against the University of Massachusetts Amherst for hosting an event on the battle for Palestinian human rights. And the lawsuit basically sought to censor an event on how activists supporting Palestinian rights are censored, and they used the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism as the basis for that lawsuit. Additionally, the Israeli Consul General to the southeastern U.S. met with the University of North Carolina to push them to cancel a course that was being taught by a graduate student who posted some tweets that were critical of Israel, using the IHRA definition to accuse him of anti-Semitism and request that the Department of Education investigate the university, which is pretty ridiculous. This is a controversial definition. Even the lead author of the definition, Kenneth Stern, has repeatedly argued against the domestic use of this definition in legislation or policy. This is a controversial definition. Hundreds of academics, including scholars of Jewish history, have expressed their opposition to the adoption of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism on the basis that it is an assault on academic freedom and that it opens us up to more scrutiny, censorship, and criminalization. And several civil liberties and civil rights organizations, including the ACLU, the National Lawyers Guild, the Center for Constitutional Rights, Jewish Voice for Peace, several other organizations have expressed their opposition to this definition. So we urge you to rescind your motion to recommend the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. We're going to return back to our first speaker, Yola Dore. Yola, if you could please unmute yourself by pressing *6. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. I am also going to be asking you to unmute here on Zoom. Okay, Yola, we can't hear you, but we'll still go back to you after we call a couple of other speakers. So the next in line that we have here, we do not have a name, so if you could please unmute yourself. The last 4 digits are ending in 9424. If you can please unmute yourself by pressing *6, and then identify yourself, and then begin to speak. Thank you.
Can you hear
Hi,
me?
my name is Chloe Levion. Was that for me?
Yes.
Hello?
Uh,
This
hel-
is Yola.
Hello, Yola? Okay, Yola, hold on. We can hear you.
I can
Chloe?
wait for Yola to speak.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. Thank you so much. Okay. Go ahead, Yola.
Oh, thank you so much. Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, staff and guests. My name is Yola Dore. I'm the Disabilities Awareness, I'm the Disabilities Liaison to the Public Safety Commission, and I'm here in that capacity tonight. Tonight, I would like to let you know about some events coming. October is National Disabilities Awareness Month, and to that end, we have 2 events coming up. One is a vaccination event on Thursday, October 20th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Great Hall Courtyard, Plummer Park. That is Thursday, October 20th. You may get your flu vaccination, and we're waiting to hear from Cedars about the COVID. So we will post that. Also in October, the much anticipated Disability Awareness Service Awards, where we have exemplary recipients this year. You'll want to tune in at our live stream October 26th, 6 p.m. And don't be late. It's going to be fabulous. It will be on Zoom, all the different channels, as well as WehoTV. I thank you. I hope that on the commission you will give special notice to disability issues as you go about your business and your personal lives. I wish each and every one of you the best this month. Have you be safe and healthy in every way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yole. If we can move on to Chloe Levion, last 4 digits 9424. Can you unmute yourself and begin speaking? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, West Hollywood Public Safety Commission. My name is Chloe Levion, and I am an Iranian-American Jew. My family fled anti-Semitism during the revolution in Iran. They went to the 2 places that were supposed to be safe, Israel and the United States. It was supposed to be different here in the U.S., but due to the spread of misinformation and anti-Semitic ideology, it isn't. This is why we need a definition. Some of the comments on this call tonight are the reason why we need the IRA definition. Every minority group should have the right to define what hatred against them is and be the leading voice in the conversation. That is not too much to ask for. The right to define anti-Semitism lies solely with the majority of the Jewish people. Jews in West Hollywood are harassed and attacked because of their identities. Anti-Semitism is real and is rising at an alarming rate. Enough is enough. I urge the Public Safety Commission to maintain their support for the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. As stated earlier, opponents of this initiative have claimed that the IRA definition is vague, impedes free speech, and attempts to stifle and criminalize criticism against Israel. A simple reading of the IRA definition will dispel these false and baseless claims. The definition expressly recognizes that criticism of Israel, similar to criticism leveled at other countries, cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you so much, Chloe. We're going to move on to the next speaker, whose last 4 digits is ending in 9005. If you could please press *6 to unmute yourself. Identify yourself and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello everyone, my name is Nadia. I'm a Palestinian community member and I'm urging you all to rescind the decision to recommend the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. First off, I would like to state that I find it absolutely disgusting that you would begin this meeting with a land acknowledgement, therefore condemning the ethnic cleansing of the indigenous peoples of this land, yet recommend this adaptation, which in essence promotes the ethnic cleansing of another people, the Palestinian people. The IHRA definition criminalizes and stigmatizes Palestinians by casting their freedom struggle as motivated by bigotry rather than a struggle for liberation. It closes off all avenues Palestinians have to criticize or organize against the Israeli occupation by making it anti-Semitic to call Israel racist or to critique the well-documented Israeli human rights violations. It puts far greater scrutiny on the Palestinian community and allies, casting an entire community under suspicion. The definition derails concerns about Palestinian well-being and freedom by instead redirecting focus into the tone and praising the criticism of Israel. Despite the comments we've heard today, which are completely false, of the 11 examples of anti-Semitism listed under the IHRA definition, 7 are about criticism of Israel and Zionism. Rather than focusing on attacks against Jewish people and Judaism, the IHRA definition makes criticism of Israel and Zionism the center of its focus. I urge the West Hollywood Public Safety Commission to reject debunked definitions of anti-Semitism that equate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism and rescind their vote to recommend the adoption of IHRA or recast their vote and vote no on IHRA. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to our next speaker with the last 4 digits of 1863. Again, 1863, if you can press *6 to unmute yourself, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. If you could state your full name for us and begin your comments, that would be most appreciated.
Hi there, can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you, yes.
Great, okay. Good evening, council members. My name is Mustafa Nizam and I'm here as the Associate Outreach Manager at the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE-LA. I urge you to rescind the decision to recommend the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, and I ask you to recast your vote and rescind your decision. Conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism sets a dangerous precedent and infringes on our First Amendment rights and censors Israelis' well-documented human rights violation and abuse. Speaking out against Israeli atrocities is the only avenue Palestinians and local activists have to expose apartheid, oppression, humiliation, and theft committed against the Palestinian people. Many of Israel's foremost critics are Jewish and oppose Israel's actions on the same moral ground that Palestinians do. I once again ask you to recast your vote and rescind your decision. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we will move on to our final speaker on this item for the evening with the last 4 digits of 4981. Again, when I mean last speaker, that's via Zoom. I believe we do have some in person, but with the individual with the last 4 digits of 4981, if you can please press *6 to unmute yourself and begin your comments, and please state your full name for us. Again, last 4 digits of 4981. If you can please press *6 to unmute yourself. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and please begin by stating your full name. Okay, I think it's fair to move on to our in-person public commenters.
In chambers, we have Wes Sigmuler. If you can please approach the podium, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
All right. Hello, Public Safety Commissioners. My name is Wes Sigmuler. I'm a local survivor advocate and harm reduction outreach worker. I also work in clinical research, and I've been a consummate participant at this commission for many years. The first time I came was, to get some action on Ed Buck when he was terrorizing our streets. And now I am here because as an activist, I know how dangerous a time it is right now for free speech and for political dissent. So this isn't about, affirming Israeli Zionism or whatever. It's not really about that position. This is about the soul of West Hollywood's values. If we will protect free speech and we will protect peaceful political dissent. And it's lazy, it's intellectually dishonest to try to pass this through the commission without any of this vital context, because clearly there's a lot more here to this item than how it was initially presented. And so I personally resent the way it was introduced, Mr. Oliver. So what I'm asking specifically tonight is that you initiate a motion tonight to recast the vote. Short of rescinding it, I think that that's the appropriate procedure. There's also questions if this is even in the purview of the commission. And so I hope that the staff will investigate if this, adopting the IHRA definition is even in the purview of this commission. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. And please do the right thing.
Thank you. That's all the speakers in chambers.
Chair, we have two more. I'm sorry.
Hi, this is Jordan David, resident of West Hollywood. We have to fight against anti-Semitism, and that means not conflating being Jewish with being a Zionist. The Jews I know say never again and fight for a free Palestine in our lifetimes. They condemn genocide and apartheid. A few months ago, we faced off against literal Nazis in West Hollywood, and they also conflated Zionism and Judaism falsely. I would ask you to rescind your recommendation because it's a violent attack on Palestinians, Jews, Black and brown people, all oppressed people across the world, as well as free speech in the US. Thanks.
Director Rivas, did you say we had a few more public comments in queue?
We have two numbers that did call in, so I didn't want to see if maybe the commission wanted to try to see if they would press *6 and give them an opportunity now.
Sure, thank you.
So we'll start with the last four digits of 4981. Again, the last telephone number of 4981 that is called in. If you could please press *6 to unmute yourself, state your full name, and provide we will provide you with 3 minutes to comment. Okay, actually we lost the individual that called in with the last four, 4981. So we will move on to 8045 as the last four digits. 8045, if you can please press *6 if you would like to comment at this time, and please begin by stating your full name. Okay, 8045 is not unmuting, so we can move on, Chair.
All right, great. Thank you, Director Rivas. We will move on now to Commissioner comments. And I will start first. The Public Safety Commission always wants to hear concerns from residents of the city of West Hollywood. It is very important. The particular item, IHRA, Commissioner Oliver brought this up in our July meeting. We voted to agendize it for our August meeting. So it was in that particular agenda. So, commissioners, I don't know if we want to have further discussion since it is not on our agenda for this evening. Do we move on?
I feel for the people who came and spoke up on this. Our commission is, we just make recommendations to the city council for policy and things like this, and it has to be agendized for us to make a motion on it right now. So I wonder if this has already gone to city council. If it's already gone to city council, then what can we do?
Well, I think our motion probably has gone to City Council already, and as you just stated, public safety does not set policy or procedures. We make recommendations to City Council. It is their decision how they move forward with an agenda item. Any other commissioners?
So I'd like to make a recommendation. We did make a recommendation. We have seen anti-Semitism in the city of West Hollywood, and it has picked up, and we're all aware of that. And I think that the intent of this commission getting involved is fear of violence over that. And that is a legitimate concern. And I think the spirit with which this commission, and I won't speak for everyone, but I know for myself, addressed that problem was so that we got attention on that and so that we could actually make sure that we had a spotlight on that, like we have had on other issues. With that said, we had people here tonight who presented comments that also need to be considered by the council, and I'd like to ask the council, who is the appropriate body to weigh the comments that were made tonight, in addition to our desire to make sure that we have appropriate action and recognition on anti-Semitism in the city of West Hollywood. That would be my recommendation.
All right, commissioners. Commissioner Oliver.
Well, first of all, thank you to everybody who spoke here in chambers and on Zoom. I would just like to first read the definition because I'm not sure that everybody who's commenting on it has read it. The definition says, and by the way, this is a non-legally binding working definition to guide us as we examine anti-Semitism in every facet of life here in our city. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, and we're seeing incidents not just of rhetoric, but violence against Jews in this country. The definition says, the IRA definition says, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. Where that is taken to be a commentary on international affairs, a stifling of free speech, Chair?
Please do not, excuse me, please do not interrupt a commissioner when they're speaking. Again, I'm going to ask you not to interrupt.
We have seen an alarming rise in anti-Semitism across the world. An ADL study of 100 countries showed that over 1 billion people worldwide harbor anti-Semitic attitudes. This is an ancient hatred, and this definition is a simple 38-word definition that gives us a working definition: rhetorical and physical manifestations. We have seen a rise in hate in this country, especially against Jewish Americans. Over 2,700 incidents last year alone directed toward Jewish Americans, directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals. We have seen incidents targeting Jewish individuals, and we saw during the 2020 campaign in which Mayor Pro Tem Seppi Shine was running, she was perceived as Jewish, and she received death threats and anti-Semitic vitriol. Toward property, we've seen swastikas and other hate messages etched into or carved, graffitied onto synagogues and other Jewish institutions. Jewish community institutions. I grew up here in LA. I went to a synagogue in Burbank. One of my family members attended a JCC, a Jewish community center called North Valley Jewish Community Center. When she was a child attending that JCC, a gunman in 1999 brought an Uzi and fired 70 rounds into the JCC. And religious facilities. A few years ago, a gunman brought an assault weapon into the Tree of Life Synagogue and murdered Jews simply for being Jews. I've gone through the 38 words of this definition, and I don't see where it says anything about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or about stifling free speech. What this does is it gives us a definition that we can work off of in defining anti-Semitism and protecting members of this community. Thank you. And thank you to Yola for calling in as well, and for always keeping people living with disabilities in this city front and center, not just in public safety, but in every discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Oliver. Also, to all of our residents sitting in chambers, there will not be interruptions when the commissioner is speaking. You will get one warning, and if you do not adhere to the warning, I will ask that you be removed from chambers. We're not going to tolerate that type of behavior. Also, before, if any other commissioners have any comments, I just want to go over a few things. We discussed limiting our time when it comes to our agency reports, which would include fire, sheriffs, and block by block. So we can run more efficient meetings and do what we did with the pickpocket forum, have a more robust forum amongst ourselves. I believe we're all in agreement to policing and limiting our times, commissioners. Does anyone have a recommendation of what they think our time limit should be?
I would say that we should have the same time limits that we give to the public.
So 3 minutes?
So 3 minutes.
Commissioners, are we in consensus? Are we in agreement?
I think we can go shorter. I think we can go 2 minutes.
And Commissioner Berger, do you think it going down to 2 minutes, does that include also the response from each agency?
No, we want to leave them, give them as much time to respond as possible, to elaborate if they need to, but I think that we just can gather our thoughts and just be more precise exactly what we're asking, and we could probably do it in 1 minute.
Well, I don't know if I think that we have to allot enough time to ask each commissioner have the opportunity to ask. I don't think a minute would be enough. Perhaps the 3 minutes, there's 7 of us, if everybody asks 3 minutes of questions, it's 21 minutes per item.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
It seems reasonable. That's the max. And then would you be, Chair, would you be open to extending that if circumstances?
Yes, if we set our limit at 3 minutes to start and see how it works. If a commissioner is in a deep discussion, probative questions with an agency, then yes, I will allow that to continue. But my objective as chair is to run the most comprehensive and effective meetings so we can move our agenda forward. So are we all in agreement on 3 minutes?
Sure.
Do we have to vote?
I know. Commission Secretary, do we need to vote on our 3 minute time limit for agency reports?
I'm sorry, on the agency reports to?
Yes, on commissioner questions. We all have agreed on 3 minutes will be our time limit, but do we need to have an official vote for record?
You do not. The fact that there's consensus amongst the commission, then that's enough. Obviously, that'll be reflected. We'll make sure in the minutes. Yeah, no vote needed.
Okay, great, thank you. Also, one last point that's very important. In our bylaws, item 3.9, which I urge all commissioners to review, it states meeting absentees. And if we miss 3 meetings in a 12-month period, there can be cause for said commissioner to be removed and replaced. So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. And again, that's item 3.9, absence of meetings in our commission bylaws.
If I remember right, that is just mandatory, that the person, it's a regular meeting, not an optional meeting, but that is just mandatory, if I remember the bylaws right.
Yes.
If you miss 3 meetings, that's it.
Yeah, correct. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that moving forward.
And just one correction. So it's more than 3 meetings the way that it states it in the bylaws, and we'll go over that actually during the item that's on the agenda. It's not an area that we're proposing, obviously, to make changes to, but we'll have it up on the screen too, Chair Berger, and maybe everybody could see that up on the screen.
Okay, great. Thank you, Director Rivas. Commissioners, any additional comments?
I do, if we're done with those. In October 2021, we came to our meeting and we found out that we hadn't done the 6-month update. Staff, you usually do a 6-month public safety update in September, and we have a chance to really drill down on that and then make our comments. And at that time, we had to. There was something coming up, a town hall or something on November 15th, if you probably remember. I just want to make sure that, I want to find out when we're going to get that update, and then I want to make sure that we have all of the information that we would like, and be prepared, so we can be very prepared for that. Can you speak on that, about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Chair Berger. We can look back. There have been obviously a number of discussions, very important discussions surrounding community safety as a whole that have been brought forth, not just before the commission here, but also to the city council. So maybe as a part of the work plan, if we get to having that discussion this evening, we can get some input and thoughts from you and the rest of the commission in terms of what you would like to see that maybe would be included in that report differently from what typically is provided right in the 6-month reports. I know it is a comprehensive kind of outline, right, of public safety, our sheriff station. I know that block by block fire department, we even have a code enforcement update that's included in that as well. And then there's other key components, right? You have our strategic initiatives and social services division that also provide updates. So if there's maybe things that are a little different that you'd like to request, then maybe that's something that we can place on the next agenda to
So
further discuss.
you normally give that in September, right? That update. Usually, it's in the past it have.
Yeah, and you're right. You probably know better than I. Of course, I know there is that 6-month update that kind of goes in between kind of time frame. If I remember, sometimes it's gotten pushed. Last year, it got pushed to November because we had a November 15th public safety update as a whole that went to the city council. And I remember that date because we brought forth the bystander intervention training for all the alcohol establishments here in the city. So I remember being a part of that discussion. So I can certainly look at that and kind of look at the calendar, and maybe that kind of pushed things a little bit back, but circle back.
My reason for this is what we wanted to do is we want to give some input because you're going to send something to city council, and we want our input involved in that. And we want plenty of time to download the documents and everything that we need for that. So do you know when you're going to send this report to city council?
Yeah, so it's definitely not going on the 19th, which is the only council meeting that we have here this month for city council, and it's not tentatively scheduled anytime in October. So I think that gives probably more than enough time for us to get whatever requests or information that you'd like, and then I can certainly report back to you and the rest of the commission in terms of when that will be going to city council, if that works.
Because it may be our next October meeting that we need to be really ready for it, and that might be agendized. So we would need to get on this and ask for the documentation that we need. I don't know when you guys want to talk about that. I'm going to anticipate. I don't want to just be caught off guard like we were last time.
Yeah, and so absolutely what I'll commit now, obviously, to you and the rest of the commission is that there will not be an item, obviously, that is scheduled to go before them in terms of a 6-month update, and then, of course, giving you and the rest of the commission ample time to provide input in that, if that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you
I'm
satisfied
good.
with the response? Okay, great. Thank you, Director Rivas. Commissioners, any additional comments at this time? Okay, so we can move along to unfinished business report from our fire chief.
Good evening, Drew Smith, Los Angeles County Fire Department. I'm your Assistant Fire Chief. Nice to see you, and I'd like to thank the leadership of West Hollywood and the Public Safety Commission for their support of our great organization, so thank you very much. For the month of August, we had a total of 5 fires, 3 of which were rubbish fires, and 2 of which were structure fires, one of those being a commercial structure fire, and that was a 400 block of Robertson, and a residential fire, 1300 block of Laurel. All the fires are still under investigation, and so we have our arson unit involved. That doesn't mean that it's arson, it's still determining cause. So I don't want you to think because we say arson, it's an arson fire. It's still determining cause on what and how those fires originated. Moving on, we had 1 hazardous materials call. We had 5 hazardous conditions call. And we had 30 service calls and 99 good intent calls. With the rescues that we had 477 rescues, and 37 of those required advanced life support, with 49 which were basic life support. And so our total for the month of August was 617 rescues, which is within the months that we have is roughly between 20 and 30 a month through the West Hollywood stations, stations 7 and 8. So sometimes it swings closer to 20, sometimes it swings closer to 30, just depending on the month, of course. So nothing that I saw was out of the ordinary. So even the fire calls that we had, we usually average somewhere between 3 and 7 for the month, and so that is at average. I'd like to thank you for your support with firefighter specialist Ishmael Ayala's Memorial Services Fire Station 7. So I know there was a bunch of the city members that were there, so we thank you for your support with that. And as you know that wildfire season approaches, we have our fixed-wing aircraft that are coming in to augment our air support force, so we are geared up for our wildfire season. As you know, as summer ends and the fall begins is when we get into our prime wildfire season, so your Los Angeles County Fire Department is gearing up for that. We currently have close to 65 personnel fighting the Fairview Fire in Riverside County, and we also have supporting overhead members up on the Tahoe National Forest fighting the mosquito fire as well. So we get very busy. We help out a lot of different areas within the state of California, and also within the United States, actually, in a lot of different facets. So your organization is very busy when you're this big, and we have so many talented people to call upon to help when the help is needed. And with that, I'd like to see if there's any questions for me.
Commissioner Secretary, do we have any public comments or questions?
We don't have any in-chamber comments.
Okay, and none on Zoom, correct? Okay,
None on
thank
Zoom.
you. Commissioners, questions for our fire chief?
I do have a question. We had a nightlife safety meeting, and one of the questions that I had about response when someone is at a club, unresponsive, someone who passes out on the sidewalk, what is the protocol for fire and for rescue in that scenario? Is the person immediately taken to Cedars? And the context, I should make sure you understand, is that oftentimes we're hearing that people have drink spiking or some other issue that's happened. Maybe they were partying, thought they were taking something, somebody gave them something else. Whatever it is, people are having an adverse experience, and that can lead to sexual assault and rape. And what I'd like to understand, if you're the first to arrive and find someone who is unconscious or not completely with their faculties, what's the process that you all use? Do you offer them potentially to go to the rape treatment? Do you ask them questions along those lines? Or do you automatically just take them to Cedars?
There's no's, yeses, and I'll give you how it goes. So anytime that we have a patient regardless of the rescue. Remember how the response comes in and then what our firefighters and firefighter paramedics observe on scene are two different things. So the nature of the call, you get a response based upon the communication between who's calling 911 and then what is dispatched. So you have great fire and paramedic support in West Hollywood. It all starts with a patient assessment. So our firefighters and paramedics do a very primary and exclusive secondary assessment on a patient to determine the proper care that they need, because not everything that is relayed to us on a 911 call is what it is once we get on scene. And then we determine the proper patient destination for that patient, which may be Cedars, it may be somewhere else, depending on the person may not want to go to Cedars, they might want to go to another facility that's a receiving facility. So with the information at hand that we get from doing basic life support and advanced life support is all based upon what is in the best interest of the patient to get to the proper medical destination. And as far as you talked about rape or allegations of rape, that is all vetted through our paramedics. It is relayed to the clinical staff at the receiving facility and also with a law enforcement presence. So we make sure that we can get the factual information for that patient to have the most positive outcome from the medical emergency or the mental emergency that's associated with that.
Thank you. I'm going to make it super real for a minute. So I am in an alley. You come upon me, and I tell you that I think someone spiked my drink and I think I've been assaulted.
Okay.
What happens? You give me an assessment. Do you offer me the ability to go to a rape treatment center? Because what we know is we know that Cedars does not do substance testing. I shouldn't call it substance use testing. Substance testing for date rape drugs.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to understand, when you come across someone, is that offered? Do you just follow the standard protocol for treating them medically?
No, we incorporate all the information delivered. So once again, it goes with the best interest of the patient. So if we have, and we don't make this decision independently, we can also have a telemedicine component into this, where we can basically Zoom or FaceTime one of our on-duty medical directors for additional direction on something that may be probable based upon the patient assessment. Also, law enforcement, once again, complements that in the decision-making process, and that is a whole investigation component that they take on. But we look at several different components, because anytime that you go to a receiving facility, they have the ability to look at and determine whether or not there was either just a suspicion or it actually happened through the clinical evaluation that they do at a hospital. And as far as the toxicity on how Cedars can test or not test, I can't answer that question based upon what their abilities are to do. But I know that there is places that they can get that done, and we just look for the right direction for the best, and once again, the best interest of the patient for that.
Thank you. And, you know, we're probably going to be making some recommendations coming out of that meeting, but I know fire wasn't there, and sometimes you are the first to arrive in that situation. So I appreciate your comments. They help me to understand.
Yes.
And I appreciate, of course, the support you give to people when you find people in those situations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our fire chief?
I have kind of one for staff, because this came under the fire staff. Just to close the loop on, we mentioned about like something for apartments, some sort of a rebate or something, and you sent me that letter. Do you want to just kind of mention that for the people that were that missed the final answer about?
Yeah, and you know what, Chair Berger, let me pull it up, because I do have that email, and I don't know if you wanted to add, if you kind of recollect it, and then I'll pull it up on the email and I'll add to it if that's okay.
Yeah. The rent stabilization does have a program, but to sort of supplement things with apartment buildings, but it was for more small things. It wasn't specifically for like something that we were talking about, like to incentivize landlords and things to put some sort of preventative measures for people going in the underground parking, like gates or something like that. So I mentioned that there was something that did exist, and Director Rivas followed up on that, and he found out the ruling on exactly what that fund is, and it was something that really wouldn't pertain to what we were talking about. So it was something that maybe we can bring back in this commission, some sort of incentivizing of the landlords so that there's more preventative measures for these kind of underground and these carport kind of things that Rathbun.
Sarah
Yeah,
Rathbun.
she mentioned how tough it is to get back behind. You had to put the big hoses to get the little hoses to get back behind in those carport areas and those places where a lot of these fires are getting started, and they can turn quickly into a structure fire instead of just a rubbish or a car fire. So that's just something that we might want to bring before our commission. It could be on our work plan or something, but it could be really a problem if, and it's also, there's a lot of people, transient kind of people or whoever it is, they're coming back in those places. And
Commissioner Berger, are you suggesting that we agendize an item or add it to our work plan?
I think that it would be a work plan, because we got so many things to do that we can prioritize which one is going to be on the agenda next, because we got so many things that may be a higher priority right now.
Okay. All right. So
and if I could just add, I did pull up the email that Commissioner Berger had mentioned, and so what we did receive a response from our social services division, and essentially it mentioned the program is called Home Secure, and so Home Secure essentially provides the ability for tenants to submit for services such as adding security locks or a thermostat or touchless type or smart devices. Even in some cases, if somebody doesn't have, let's say, a peephole on their front door, and again, they have some security concerns, there's other elements of the program that allow folks to take advantage of accessibility issues. If somebody's disabled, they can apply for these types of services. And so these things are provided at no cost. And that includes the installation, et cetera. So we don't have the complete details, but it's a program that's already in place, is already being provided by 2 vendors that the city has contracts with. And so we can certainly pull that information, get kind of an overview of that, if that's helpful, and provide it to the commission, if that's the will.
Yes, thank you, Director Rivas.
Sure.
Any other questions for our fire chief? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, in closing, I also want to introduce our new battalion chief, which is Zach Cates. He's on the B shift. So you'll have Sarah Rathbun, you'll have Zach Cates, and then you have Leland Delaney. And so those are your 3. So he's a 20-year veteran of the organization and a really good friend of mine, and he was hand chosen. He'll be a great compliment for the city of West Hollywood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome to the team.
Welcome.
Next, we will move on to our reports from our Sheriff's Department. Sergeant Yost.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. For August 2022, Part 1 crime was down 5%. August had 163 incidents compared to August of 21 with 173 incidents. Year-to-date totals for 2022, Part 1 crimes were up 85% when compared to the same time frame of last year. Part 1 crimes on the west side were up 11%. However, City Center was down 14% and the east side was down 25%. Part 1 crime breakdown for the city, the west side was 52%, City Center was 26%, and the east side was 22%. Grand theft, petty theft, and vehicle burglaries accounted for 60% of Part 1 crime in the city, with 98 total thefts occurring in August. Residential burglaries increased 25% from August 2021, from 4 to 5. Of these incidents, 2 arrests have been made. Other burglaries have decreased 57%, going from 35 down to 15. The east side saw a 50% increase in residential burglaries with 3. However, the west side saw a 50% decrease in residential burglaries. This was where we had been focusing our attention on the west side based on the previous months. We will continue to adjust our patrols to address these crimes. Vehicle burglaries were down almost 32% compared to this time last year. We had 14 grand theft pickpocketing incidents and 2 arrests. We had 13 robberies, 7 armed and 6 strong-armed, and 2 arrests were made. We had 17 aggravated assaults, and we made arrests in 6 of these incidents. For August of 2022, West Hollywood Station received 1,769 total calls for service. Deputies made 246 arrests, 66 of these were felonies, and 180 of these were misdemeanors. We continue to have a footbeat deployment every day. Previously, these footbeats were on the east side and west side and 3 days a week. We continue to conduct saturation patrols, evening footbeats, and other types of operation with cops and an entertainment policing team. We had been focusing on Sunset Boulevard and the west side due to the larger number of thefts and crimes that have occurred in these areas. On August 17th, the Cops and Entertainment Policing Team, in partnership with Cedars-Sinai Hospital, hosted a health fair, reaching out to all of the community. Our West Hollywood Met team was also present to answer questions and offer support. On August 31st, Cops and Entertainment Policing Team, along with the Task Force for Regional Auto Theft Prevention, hosted a catalytic converter etching event. 20 community members' vehicles received etching services. Let's get to training, because I know that's a fun one. On September 7th, 35 West Hollywood Station personnel attended the in-service training with UCLA Rape Treatment Center, as well as Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department LGBTQ+ training. We will continue to run these trainings until all West Hollywood Sheriff Station personnel have received this training. Our next training is scheduled for September 13th. In the future, all newly assigned personnel will receive this training as part of their station orientation. We're also having our CERT and Community Academy. West Hollywood Station will be hosting its CERT program every Tuesday starting September 20th from 5 to 8 p.m. and the Community Academy every Wednesday starting September 21st from 5 to 8 p.m. Are there any questions for me?
Yes. When you said that deputies attended the Rape Center treatment facility for training, where was that? Is it the facility in Santa Monica or?
So we had in-service training. They actually came to our station and briefed personnel at the station.
Oh, okay, great. Also, I experienced something today that I found disturbing. I went to get lunch at yummy.com at Domain around 1:30, and when I went to open the door was locked. And an employee had to come to the door to let me in. And I asked what was going on. He says, we're just having a lot of problems with that. So now we're forced to keep the door locked. Do we have a solution for how we can help our businesses in this situation? Like, what has the beat patrol been on the east side? Because this was in the middle of the day.
I think we're constantly adjusting. Sheriff's Department working with block by block. We just have to adjust. We have to reach out to the businesses, work together. When these issues do arise, reaching out to either block by block or the Sheriff's Department, and working together to, deal with whatever those issues might be within that area.
And does the Sheriff's Department ever do a business check-in, like stop in at yummy.com, make them aware of the different options, including block by block, ask if there have been any problems?
We do. The COPS team does that on a regular basis. I actually run the COPS team and entertainment policing team. And part of the requirements I ask of them is that they go to businesses, speak with the managers, ask them what's going on, if there's anything they can do to help or, figure out issues and solve the problems.
All right, great. I mean, I think it would be great if maybe if we could get someone from the COPS team over to yummy.com and see, what situations they're really experiencing that's forcing them to keep the door locked during the day. Commissioners, any questions for?
I got one to follow up with what you're talking about. Lieutenant Lapkin last time, she mentioned, and this happened a lot with shoplifters, she mentioned SDs and they had gone down a little bit. I looked that up because I didn't know what it was. I guess it's struggle detained. Something where it appeared like there was some sort of a struggle when they go to like arrest a shoplifter.
Oh, you're about Estes, Robert, yes.
What's it called? SD?
Estes. Estes? Not SD, ST, Estes. EST?
ST?
Yeah, why?
What's
Estes.
it mean?
Estes robbery is when you say you go into a business and a security tries to detain you and you fight that person, then it changes it from just a burglary to a robbery.
Okay, because that stuck out to me, and it's about what you're talking about. Do these people getting more violent? Is there a way that you guys are like trying to? I don't know how you can bring that down. Anyway, I have more questions, but I'll let you guys go. Anybody else?
Commissioners, any questions for our sergeant?
Just wanted to follow up on, it's good to hear crime is down. I wanted to follow up on the pickpocketing. There was a fairly major arrest a few months ago. Any new arrests, any new updates on that?
Before you answer, I'm sorry, Sergeant Yost. We do have item 8D is our pickpocketing.
I'll save that.
So yeah, maybe that would be a better time to ask that question. Commissioners, any other questions for?
Real quick, I'm also glad to hear that this training happened. Could you say when the next one is again? I missed that.
Our next training is scheduled for...
And I guess how regular? That's ultimately what my question is.
What's
like how regular will the trainings be?
So we're trying to get them through once a month until everybody's been through the training.
Okay, and then will there be follow-up trainings to build on it?
Yeah, so like I said, everybody that comes in that's new, once we've had everybody trained, anybody that comes in new to the station, as part of their orientation to the station, they will receive this training.
And is it being received well by the deputies?
Yeah.
Yeah, helpful and informative? Fantastic. Thanks.
Commissioners, any additional questions for Sergeant Yost?
I do. I'll try to go fast with these. The 6 bikes that you guys were getting from Cedars for your bike patrol, did they get here yet?
They have not. Actually, we went out today and looked. We are in the process of purchasing them. So we should have them by the end of this, ordered by the end of this week.
Okay. The footbeat you increased. It appears like the crime went down. Is that part of the cause, do you think?
I hope so.
Okay, the escape, when on your fence, there was a vulnerability, and we spoke about that with Lieutenant Lapkin about checking on making that, it was due to that escapee, and I had noticed this before. She was going to check about that with the facilities, like how to make that more safe, secure.
Yeah, I can't speak on what I know she has reached out to facilities. I don't know what the plan of attack is on that is, so we would have to wait till she gets back.
Okay, so I just don't want to let that go away. Lockboxes, you had a criminal investigation. You thought you had a suspect that was going to, and you thought if you caught the person, did you end up catching that person?
I do not know that answer.
Okay, and the last one is, and this, I guess, I'm going to wait on the last one when we do our pickpockets. It'll fall in with that.
Commissioners, any additional sheriff's questions? Also, Commissioner Secretary, apologies, did we have any public
Yes, we
comments?
do have one in chambers. Annie Jump Vicente.
I'd just like to start with a quote from Jane Jacobs from the book The Death and Life of Great American Cities. Quote, lowly, unpurposeful, and random as they may appear, sidewalk contacts are the small change from which a city's wealth of public life may grow. That is what you call a public character. Someone like myself who monitors the streets to make sure that we're all safe. I would also like to say quickly, including your definition, the right to criticize the oppressors of Palestine. Commissioner Berger, thank you for trying to have me arrested at the meeting on August 8th. You showed how people who care about public safety will be arrested by the exact aggressive force that perpetuates oppression. You attempted to have a trans white woman arrested. You make me feel unsafe in this city. Those sheriffs over there, they make me feel unsafe. Commissioner Berger, you proved that at that meeting that trans folks are not welcome here. You proved that you don't care about public safety, but your own image. You showed that sheriffs can be called upon to arrest anyone you think committed a crime or have done something illegal. What did you find illegal about me bringing city property that was destroyed by reckless drivers? I brought that to you because they weren't being cleaned up. I will say this every time. Sheriffs exist only as a suppression and oppression tool for those in power that want to control those with little to no power. You, Commissioner Berger, and those that agreed with him actively attempted to use the tools of oppression, the sheriffs, to remove someone who cares greatly about public safety. You showed that you are willing to use force to suppress speech without understanding the actions and the words being vocalized. End the contract with the Sheriff's Department. Sheriffs, put down your guns and put down your badge. End your practice of hiding in bars and restaurants. You have no identification when you do that either. You are becoming the secret police that protect the wealthy and oppresses those that need assistance. You scare the hell out of people like me, and your presence alone makes folks feel unsafe. Police murder people and are rewarded for it. You try to justify stolen phones as something that needs to be addressed. This petty reason is why you need to be removed from the city of West Hollywood. Use the money that funds the police to help people afford housing, food, water, medical and mental care, and education. Care for those that most desperately are in need. End the practice of criminalizing homelessness and mental illness. There's a building right next door that we can convert into a housing and a treatment center. Turn the sheriff's department into a building of a care center, not a place to criminalize those just finding ways to survive another day.
Thank you very much. Commission Secretary, any additional public comments for
There's
Sergeant
no more in chambers. We can check Zoom.
We have one telephone number that's listed ending in 9424. If you wish to speak or comment on this item, if you could please press *6 at this time. First state your name, and then you would have 3 minutes to speak. That is, of course, if you wish to speak on this specific item. Chair, we're good. No.
Okay, so we can move on. Thank you, Sergeant Yost. Next, we'll get our monthly block-by-block report from Manager Gibson.
Manager block by block. Actually, for the month of August, I do not have an actual report out. I was not here. I was on maternity leave. So besides the statistics that I provided, I don't have much to report on August. What I can say is that during my leave, we did have company support here who were diligently working on our recruitment process and our recruiting for the additional 30 ambassadors and the foot patrols. So since my return, I have continued that recruiting process, and we're doing well. We're up to about 20 hired now. They'll be going through the process and training, of course. And also, we have acquired our kiosks. We've been in discussion with Mr. Rivas as far as the locations and where they'll be going. We have hired the people to man those kiosks, so we should be putting them out shortly. I'm open to any questions that you may have.
I do have a question. Since the change from our private security agency to block by block overseeing the parks, West Hollywood Park, and I believe also Plummer Park, how is that going?
From my point of view, it's going well. I can tell you from our first introduction over at West Hollywood Park, we put our kiosk next to the exterior restroom by the dog parks. When I first went over there and we all did a tour with park staff, a lot of homeless strawed out over the tables and, just a little bit of everywhere. Since the kiosk has been there, that's not necessarily the case anymore. I visit the park daily to check up on the teams as far for quality control, and it looks like a beautiful place to be for the most part. Every now and then you will have some transient activity, but we do address that as best as possible.
And I mean, the park is substantially much larger now. How many block by block ambassadors are scheduled at a time?
We'll have anywhere between 3 and 4 at a time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey, Shay.
How you doing?
So question for you. So with the hiring of the new block by block enforcement, where are you? Like, are you halfway there? Are you?
So we're about 20 people in.
Got it.
The count was supposed to be 30.
Mhm.
So I'm going to try to overhire anyway, just to fill any gaps that we may possibly foresee in the future.
Yeah. And I would recommend that once you guys get set up, you have like a mixer with the West Hollywood Police Department so everybody can kind of get to know one another and you guys will be working closely. So I think that's super important so that everybody knows everybody from both sides.
Fantastic recommendation,
yeah.
yes. I believe that those are some things that we have in the works as far as the communication between myself, my RVP, and Danny Rivas. So those things should be coming up soon, and I look forward to being there, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other commissioner comments?
I
Or
do have one
questions,
comment.
rather?
First, welcome back.
Thank you.
And I would like to see pictures.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Secondly, I have noticed an enhanced presence of block by block when I walk the streets in the morning, pretty much all over the city. But where I haven't seen them yet, and I think this is based on the hiring, is on the side streets. Mm-hmm. On the main thoroughfares, I'm seeing them earlier and I'm seeing more of them. So that's good. But the side streets, that really hasn't started yet, correct?
Correct. That's correct. That's correct.
And then one of the areas that I know is now much more susceptible, especially early hours, late hours, is City Center, because we've had several businesses closed and there's some dead spots there. How is patrol going there? Do we have people there? Because I've seen on East and West Side, still haven't seen many City Center.
Right. So we haven't really stationed an exact patrol in that area. So the guys are going through that area when they're traveling to and forth. And they're making contact while they're going through, but we don't have the people concentrating in that area just yet.
Okay.
But with acquiring the rest of these people, we should be able to take care of all that kind of stuff.
I'm definitely seeing more people out in the streets, so that's a good job. Thank you.
Commissioner Oliver.
Well, I was going to ask about the recruitment. I'm glad to hear that you're making progress on that. So I'll just say congratulations on the birth of your child.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You look like you could use some sleep.
Oh my goodness. My goodness, my goodness. My goodness.
No, but congratulations.
I tried the best with my makeup today as I could. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Do we have any public comments for Block by
Yes,
Block?
we have one public comment. Annie Junk-Vicente.
Well, I don't want to go over my 3 minutes. Can it start, please? I want to be respectful. Thank you. I just started writing this about, I don't know, 3 minutes ago. Block by Block is just another force to remove people from public spaces. Block by Block is another tool to remove the image of homelessness from settling within the city of West Hollywood. The amount of ambassadors that are flooding the streets is scary. Trans people are homeless at rates higher than any other group per capita. Discrimination of trans people is illegal, but this does not stop people from excluding trans folks from succeeding alongside the wealthiest residents. Billionaires in this city, and yet we can't fund any medical care for trans folks in this city. Where is my support? Where is the support for all those homeless trans people that need help? I don't see any trans representation in this city, and it's the scariest thing. You know what this means? This entire system needs to be dismantled because nothing here works for anybody on the streets. This does not work for all those homeless people that live alongside these billionaires. Tax them out of existence. I'm sick and tired of living in a city that has billionaires with homeless people on the street, and yet the sheriffs arrest people block by block, removes them from public spaces, their underpaid staff, and a new underpaid law enforcement that you justify to try to remove the sheriff slowly while underpaying people just like the billionaire class likes. And yet all of you do not care about public safety. Just because you were appointed to this position by other people in power does not mean you actually care about the issue. Thanks again for trying to have me arrested last time. I really appreciate it. I am sick and tired of seeing Commissioner Oliver campaign on whatever the hell he's talking about just because he wants to be in another position of power. I don't want to see anyone here running for another position of power for city council just so that they could perpetuate the same nonsense, the same exact nonsense that keeps people oppressed. Keep your neoliberal agendas out of the city. Stop occupying the land. Why do you constantly acknowledge it, but don't do anything about it? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Stop occupying the land, give it back to the indigenous people, you acknowledge it every time, but yet you don't do anything about it. Stop advocating for billionaires and start advocating for the homelessness and the people that desperately need house. Start advocating for medical care for everybody and just goddamn rights for everybody. Goodbye.
Your language, you were warned the last time you were in chambers. The next time you come to speak, I expect you to adhere to the rules. Okay, conversation is done. We're done. We're done. Manager Gibson, I do have a question because you are hiring. Have we gotten any transgender applicants apply?
Yes.
Okay, and the reason why I ask because I know we do experience a lot of issues with our young trans youth on the street. And I'm one of those that believes that sometimes if you see yourself in a position that maybe it can lead to betterment. So we have had some applicants apply?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay. I mean, it's something I would love to see, even with our sheriff's department. I would love to see trans deputies here in the city of West Hollywood. I just think it's important.
I think it's important as well. Whoever wants to apply and can actually do the job, I have no problem with it at all. I welcome anyone who actually wants to come and support what's going on here in West Hollywood and in the public safety role that we play.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Following up on that question, can you prioritize that in the recruitment process?
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions?
Just a quick, just to keep this on your radar, I'm sure you guys are. The data reports David spoke about that we are going to be part of, like what kind of data reports we want to see from you guys. Just, I know you're probably working on it, but it's just, I just wanted to mention that we keep that in mind.
Okay. Any additional commissioner questions?
I have one question. So I know that we've been focused a lot on the sheriff's training. I know that you also have training modules, and one of the ones that I think we should definitely ensure that we are paying attention to is the LGBTQIA+ training. Does anyone from the community review that with you?
From the community, not as of yet.
Okay. That may be something, I know that there's a lot of emphasis on trying to get review from the LGBTQIA Commission, as well as the Transgender Advisory Board on some of the training materials, and I think we'll want to look at your materials in addition to the sheriff's materials and see if there's any supplemental information available that would be helpful. So, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Our next item is our debrief on the pickpocketing session. It was our August 24th meeting. Item 8D on the agenda is the Commission's debrief of the August 22nd meeting, special pickpocketing session, and community listening meeting. Do we have any public comments in chambers?
Yes, we do have one public comment for this item. Adam, Ararium? Sorry, I butchered that.
Good evening, Chair, Co-Chair, and Commissioners. Sorry. It's an honor to be here again. Hopefully, from the last time I spoke, from a C, I'll be upgraded to a B today. I wanted to give you guys a little brief update on the pickpocketing situation in Mickey's, West Hollywood. We have seen a significant decrease in pickpockets. I would say about a good 50% decrease in pickpocketers. I would say that has a lot to do with our customers putting the word out there, our sheriff's department with a presence with the sheriff's department and block by block. So it's a good thing to hear that cell phone thefts are down 50%. I just feel that the pickpocketers are becoming very savvy and they know that we're onto them and they're probably thinking of different ways to do this even further. But for the meanwhile, I just want to say that I'm very pleased to report that it is down 50%. The last time we spoke about Patron Scan, and the Abbey was here. I would love to know an update on how that meeting went with the Abbey and the other businesses that are hopefully going to discuss and have meetings with Patron Scan. And I just want to reiterate that Patron Scan is a form that we use to identify customers. When they come in, we scan them, and if more bars have it, we'll be able to communicate with each other and we'll be able to identify which person has been problematic at one establishment, and when they come to another establishment, we get a red flag. The other thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if it's part of this segment, we've talked about block by block, and it has a lot to do with public safety, and either it could be cell phone theft or any other situation that arise. Currently, I don't think block by block has the authority to do citizens arrests, and I would like to know why block by block does not do citizens arrests. There are licensed guard cards. If it has something to do with handcuffs, there's a training that they can take. But if block by block was to be able to put individuals under citizen's arrest, not under arrest, but everyone has the capability of putting someone under a citizen's arrest. So if block by block had the capability of putting someone under citizen's arrest, because the sheriff's department is very busy. And by the time the sheriffs arrive at the location, you know, it could take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. So if block by block had the opportunity to place someone under citizen's arrest until the deputies arrived and investigate that further, instead of releasing that person, you know, it could be a proposed pickpocketer or any kind of person doing something that they shouldn't be doing within our city, we could detain them, and then the sheriffs can do their investigation there. Because the one thing I get frustrated as an operations manager is when we try to press charges with the sheriff's department always comes back saying that, okay, if you're gonna press charges, then they're gonna press charges. It just becomes this one-on-one thing where obviously where our employees have been assaulted, and I don't understand why, if we have the evidence and the proof to provide that they are the assailant and we are the victim, why is it one of those things that we're offered that, okay, I understand the sheriff's department didn't witness the crime. I understand that. And I respect that. But giving them the, you know, it just makes things more difficult. Giving them, and that's what happens flat out. After 5 minutes of interviews with the deputies, then they come back, they speak to us. Well, now they want to press charges. And we press charges. We have nothing to hide.
Yeah,
we'll press the charges.
I'm sorry, Adam and Chair. So, Chair, he's exceeded the 3 minutes, and it's perfectly fine. It's your will if you want him to continue, but...
Yeah, actually, Adam, because this is something we're going to discuss and is very important, I would like for you to continue. That's why I didn't interrupt you.
So what I was saying, I just want to know, why is it that we do that? Why is it that when we are being assaulted, our employees, our security guards are being assaulted, we call block by block, but block by block cannot do pretty much. They just stay there, they observe, and they call the sheriff's department. But we've also called the sheriff's department. So why is it that block by block cannot place someone under citizen's arrest until the deputies arrive, and then the deputies can investigate and then interview both parties?
Okay.
But then when you interview both parties, I'm not saying businesses are innocent and the customers are innocent, because no one is ever innocent. There's always going to be some kind of fault going on there. But when the deputies come and they're like, well, okay, now they want to press charges, and my security guard has a big old lash bleeding, and the person who did the victimizing doesn't have anything, why do they get the opportunity or given the chance to press charges? It just makes things more difficult.
Okay. Director Rivas, is there a way to inquire block by block's directive and find out why they do not do citizens arrests?
Yeah, so that is not something that's included in the scope of services that the city contracts with block by block for. In the situation that I'm hearing being described, obviously Mickey's does have security personnel that have guard cards as well. And so if they're observing any sort of crime or any sort of suspicious activity or other situations if somebody's assaulting, then they would have, right, that capability as that private business, and it's their responsibility, given that they have security on site, to provide that citizen's arrest and to contact the sheriff's department, to have block by block security ambassadors contacted, then go to a business establishment, and then further that citizen's arrest. I just don't, I don't see the connection there. I appreciate and understand what Adam is bringing to our attention, but you know, in general, block by block security ambassadors are there to be out, you know, patrolling the public right of way, public facilities as outlined in our contract, and so that is not in the scope of work. And if it is something that we're given direction to look into, then that's certainly something that we need to go back, speak with block by block about in terms of their liability, their insurance, et cetera. There's a lot of other components. When you're placing anybody and detaining anybody, it is considered an arrest. And so the first thing that anybody should be doing when they're observing or seeing a crime is to contact the sheriff's department, understanding that there are delays at times, but if there's some way to kind of help expedite that, I know block by block will contact the sheriff's station on a number of different occasions, and the West Hollywood Sheriff Station is aware of that, keeps track of that, and is trying to prioritize those types of calls that are coming in to they can respond, you know, as quickly as possible.
Okay, great.
With all due respect, I'm sorry, with all due respect, I understand that you say that Mickey's has guard cards and securities obtain guard cards, but in order to place handcuffs on someone, you need training to place those handcuffs on someone. So we, as a private establishment in West Hollywood, our guards are not required to have handcuff certification. If we are going to be supplementing public safety with block by block to help the sheriff's department, then block by block needs to be certified to put people under citizen's arrest. Don't put that on the establishment, don't put that on the business. We already spend a hefty amount of money on public safety for our customers and our employees. So we do have handcuffs on premises, but we don't use them because our guards are not licensed to use them. So like I just want to reiterate, if we're going to be utilizing block by block to help supplement the sheriff's department, then block by block should have the capability and the authority to place someone under citizen's arrest. I've placed numerous people on citizen's arrest as an operations manager and working nights and daytimes. I've gone to court, I've testified. I have no problem doing that. But I would like to see block by block assisting us, assisting the nighttime businesses, the bars, the restaurants, in helping detaining the problematic people.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Yeah, question 3. So if an assault occurs at your bar, are you dialing 911?
We call 911.
And so how often do they come? How long do they typically take?
We're right across the street from the
I know
sheriff's
exactly
station,
where you are.
So it takes about a good 15 minutes.
And they do come in 15 minutes?
15, 20 minutes.
And so then you say this person assaulted this person, we'd like to arrest them, and then...
And I just want to go back. It takes them 15 minutes, but when I'm on the street corner waving them down, patrol cars will drive right by me.
Yeah.
And I'll be flagging them with my flashlight and all that, and they just go by me.
Yeah.
So it takes a good sometimes it takes 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yep, you're lucky with 20 minutes. But so wouldn't it be helpful if there was beat cops like on busy nights, like there was literally cops stationed around that area with block by block people? So you could literally just, their name and you could call out and say, we've got a problem over here, can you come over?
Commissioner Roman, from your mouth to God's ears.
Yes, and so that's going to be we're going to talk about what we're going to recommend to council now, right? What
15
our ideas
years.
are? We're going to state our ideas and then send them up to council?
Well, we're going to recap the debrief because I know we were missing 2 commissioners at the debrief. Director Rivas, do you recall who was missing at that meeting?
The pickpocketing meeting, it was Commissioner Berger and Commissioner Steele.
Oh, okay. All right. Commissioner Steele, is that against the Commissioner Berger?
And Nika is missing also, no?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you're
Commissioner-
correct.
So,
Commissioner
so,
Rowan,
I,
yes,
I,
and Commissioner
so from that
Sunshine.
meeting, I made a list of things that I would like to talk about that we could recommend, and I think that most of us will agree to them. So can I just rattle them off?
Yeah, because I think, this is the idea. I think, before you start, we were all very pleased with the result of that meeting. And the interchange and what we learned from our managers, bar owners and whatnot. And so now this is our opportunity to recap and debrief and make some recommendations.
So number one is that we recommend to
I'm sorry, Commissioner Roman. Are we done with public participation?
Oh,
Do you
yeah,
want Adam to
sorry, Adam.
continue
I just wanted to
speaking
say-
before we conclude and move on?
Just 10 more seconds. Commissioner Roman, thank you for bringing up the Beat Patrol, because 20 years ago, we had the Beat Patrol on Santa Monica Boulevard, where the Beat Patrol officers, deputies, made contact with me, my nighttime managers, on a nightly basis. We knew them on a first name basis. It wasn't even Deputy John, it was like John. And I would love to see that come back. That is what we need. The
that's what we're gonna recommend.
the presence of uniformed deputies.
All right,
Again, thank you for your time.
Adam.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So based on our meeting, these are the 4 ideas that I had. So implementing ProScan, having like grants for bars and getting the word out so that bars start to implement this system, right? So offering the bars a grant or kind of getting everybody up and running so that everybody starts sharing ProScan. That was like the most important thing I think we took away from that meeting. Beat cops and block by block stationed on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays on that area, like where we literally know that they're going to be there. We know what time. So 10:30, I think we said between 11:30 and 2:30 a.m. is when it was really wild out there. So when Sergeant Yo says that we have beat cops, I've literally never seen them. I've lived in this city for 20 years. I know Robert said that he saw them. I've never, ever seen a cop walk in West Hollywood. And own a business here. I'm on the streets all day long on my bike. My guides are. I've never seen a cop walk around here. So if we do that, we want to know 11:30 to 2:30, who are the cops, where are they standing, and so we can actually see them out there. And I think that we should have an army of block by block people around there so that when something like that happens, you can run out and call a police officer over to help you. So that was number 2. Getting the bars, the heads of security, the club managers, getting them all on some kind of email chain or getting them to kind of talk somehow so that they can share information. That was another one we took away. And then the 4th one was actually contacting the FBI to see if they can step in to help with break this crime ring that's going on. We talked about the drop house and all that stuff. So those are the 4 takeaways I had. I don't know if you guys had anything else from that meeting.
Any other comments?
I do. Just an amendment to the first part. I think implementing a security measure, perhaps it's ProScan, but I do understand some privacy concerns were raised, especially given the fact that our entertainment venues are predominantly LGBT, are the major ones in the city. I do think we should recommend some sort of ID scanner, not just for identification, but also for age verification. But I think the ProScan itself with the photo element raises some privacy concerns beyond for criminals, for people who may not feel comfortable patronizing a business and having their photo taken. It just creates kind of a feeling of uneasiness for people who may not be out of the closet or who may not be out to their families. I think that's something to be considered in this. We have to address this, absolutely, but we do have to balance that with privacy concerns. So I would only recommend the change from the specific ProScan device to some form of ID scanner.
Well, I will say I've been to Mickey's several times, and is it pro or patron scan? It's patron.
Patron, yeah, it's
Patron scan.
Yeah.
It works pretty brilliantly, and observing, because I was curious to see patrons' responses when they walked up. Everyone just like walked up, gave their driver's license. It literally takes less than 3 seconds to do. I do believe in everyone's right to privacy. Sadly, we live in very different times. And you know, if you're in Europe, there's CCTV everywhere. And I think this has been a beneficial help to Mickey's. And when I've seen people walk up, they just automatically know the drill. And I would love to see if maybe this could be something that could be recommended for all of the bars to look into.
I think that, sorry, were you?
The only thing I would say is, and I'm not saying that necessarily that's the only time you're going to have your photo taken that night. There are going to be cameras all over the bars in terms of privacy concerns. But I think that there's maybe it's a deterrent to people who may not be fully out, even wanting to enter some of our establishments. I'm not opposed to it per se. I just want that to be taken into consideration. So if we're going to make a recommendation for a specific type, I would like that privacy concern addressed. And then also, you know, there are multiple companies that operate a little differently. Some have the photo element, some are, my understanding is it's just the ID scanner, and some will verify that ID as well. So people aren't using fake IDs, and a photo will pop up so you'll know if it was altered. I guess the amendment that I'm proposing is just to broaden the recommendation to possibly include that specific one, but to explore other mechanisms to accomplish that.
Patron scan is not like outing people. It's just you're scanning your ID. So if I'm a pickpocketer and I went to the Abbey and I got busted pickpocketing, and now I'm in patron scan and they scan me as a pickpocketer, if I tried to go to Rocco's, when I go in, I'm now identified. We don't care about people going in, we care about criminals. So it's all about identifying the criminal. And we have to take measures. Like, it's so bad out there. You know people that got pickpocketed. We all know people that got pickpocketed. So we need to, this is just like the best idea that's out there. So I don't know if there's any other systems besides Patron Scan, but Patron Scan seems to work, and we should recommend to council to look into it and encourage bars to sign up and do it, and offer a grant to do it, and get everybody up and running to do it. So I'm for that recommendation.
I think the other thing about Patron Scan is it seems like it only works if everybody's connected.
Yeah.
And I thought I heard, and maybe this is something that we ask people to look into as part of implementation, is what you said, which is you can do the ID scan and you can do a photo, or you could just do the ID scan. And there may be some bars in the city who do not want to do both. And if they opt not to do both, then that's fine. You're still going to have your ID scanned, and if you're a pickpocketer and show up, it's going to flash, and they're going to say you're not welcome. But others may choose to actually do, for their own liability and for other reasons, to actually do the photo. So to me, I'd like to see what the options are and let the bars decide what's best for their patrons and their environment.
Thank you. That's I agree entirely with Commissioner Bobo.
Yes.
I think that the way that patron scan worked, from what I understand, he said there was a big, beautiful red podium that the people come on and they take a photo at the same time, and that matches whatever ID they have. It can be passport, and it's matched up with the DMV, right? So I think that that's part of the thing with that. I think you kind of have to have the photo. But the hesitancy that I saw, it wasn't the money for the bars. They all are very motivated. They said 40% of the Yelp complaints are about pickpocketing, and they said the media was killing them. You know, it hurts their business, and they really care about. They're spending a lot of time on this. It's not so much we need to incentivize them, as it was that there was a hesitancy. Like, remember Robert S., he came and says, I went to the other bars and says, why don't we use this system? He used Cluster. I signed up for that. It looks like it's something really good, you know, that photo sharing app. And a couple of other ones. They had, I sensed that the deeper thing was they wanted a neutral party maybe. Like the Abbey seemed to be like, yeah, if West Hollywood, if it was a West Hollywood app, it doesn't have to be a West Hollywood app. It can be another app, but maybe West Hollywood controls that app somehow, so it's controlled by somebody neutral. I thought that was a subtle thing, but I thought that might have been important. You know, that whatever app it is, the Patron Scan seems like the absolutely fantastic. It would, and it could solve, like Commissioner Balbone was talking about, it can really help with the nighttime safety. That was a really big one. The other thing that I saw was the lost and found, some kind of another neutral location for the lost and found. It was killing everybody, having to do all their own lost and found. Everybody was coming. They didn't know if they got pickpocketed. They were coming to the same places. They all didn't have the same list. They don't know, the venues don't know what to do with the stuff after a certain amount of time. I think it would be really smart for us to have that information as well, the data. It could be useful for us to see, oh, there's this many more. So there's like a central sort of a location. Take the burden off of the small businesses where we have somebody come and pick it up every single day at a certain time. The businesses, instead of making a list and having to take it to the bakery and the Abbey and all of this thing, they have a common list. They send the people to this exact one location, one list that has professionally picked up and taken care of. The footage was the big one. I think that it will help with the nighttime as well. The footage, the cops come in like the next day and want to do interviews to investigate what happened, and it's not just the pickpocketing, but and these guys are like a different shift, you know. So if we had some neutral party again with the footage, and Adam, and thanks for coming. Where we had a neutral party, he said, you know, they can only keep it for 7 to 10 days because it's that 360-degree cameras. So if there was an in-the-cloud footage, I think that's key. That means the cops can access that when they want to. They were all hesitant about giving it to any civilians. All of the venues didn't want to do that. So those were, to me, seem to be the key points. Yeah, Patron Scan, Commissioner Roman, and your suggestions are really good. But I think that those are things, and maybe Danny, Rivas, you guys, the way that you put together this one for the scooters was excellent. You know, the memo that you're going to put over to, we haven't all commented on it yet, but that's sort of a detail for a recommendation to council, and maybe a couple of options rather than this is what we said, maybe a couple of variations like.
Not to interrupt you, Chair Berger, but Director Rivas, do we need to agendize this item for our next meeting?
In terms of the pickpocketing,
yes,
you can
correct.
certainly provide comments, input, and feedback. And then if we wanted to provide like an actionable items based off of what Commissioner Roman suggested, and even some of the other commissioners, then I think the best thing would be to have consensus here, place it on the next agenda. So if the action is to maybe prepare a memo concerning the recommendations, and hopefully we'd have an opportunity to have all the commissioners there, but even if not, then we can move forward with something like that. But you can certainly continue to discuss ideas, input, feedback if that.
Why do we have to wait another month? Why can't we just discuss them now, let you know, and then we get the document together and we send it to council with our recommendations? Like if the others aren't here, that's not our... I don't think that we should wait another month for this. We've already waited a month. I think we're all in agreement with our recommendations to council, so let's just get them on a piece of paper like you did with the scooter thing, and let's get them over to council as soon as possible.
Well, my concern is there protocol in how this is handled? Does this need to be agendized first?
Well, yeah, it is agendized, and the action, the recommendation on it is receive and provide input. So if the input is, at the will of the commission, we can certainly start drafting, and I am drafting a memo is certainly something that I can do. If you guys, commission was pleased kind of with the draft that was sent, right, regarding the scooters.
Yeah, that one was great.
And then getting everybody's consensus, and we can have that go to at the next meeting. And the only reason I mentioned that is because the nighttime safety meeting, although it's not a part of this discussion, I was going to provide an update regarding that during items from staff, so that the commission, I'm sure Vice Chair Balbone, and I know Commissioner Steele, and I know a couple of other commissioners were there present or in the chambers or viewed it. So all of that is in progress. And so, we can certainly propose that and get moving on all of that stuff.
As long as we go ahead and have an update on the separate safety, I'm okay with moving forward with this. I don't think they have to be packaged together. I do not want to see a lot of daylight between them, though, because the other effort started much earlier, and there's a need in the community to address gaps we have there. But let's address the gaps as swiftly as we can on all fronts.
Sure, absolutely. If it's the will of the commission and you want to get moving on having staff begin drafting a memo and circulating that with commission, we can certainly do that.
Okay, do we need to take a vote?
Well, can I say one more? I want to add two possible things that I think may be impacting the pickpocketing. One is some sort of way to track and measure how effective the whole Patron Scan thing is, for example. The second thing that seemed to really impact it was the bolo that you guys put out, Sergeant Yost, and you caught the guy that threw all 17 phones on the ground. And I didn't know what a bolo was. I think it's be on the lookout. And I don't know how that bolo came to you guys. Was it for a sexual assault, or was it for this specifically? And whoever put that bolo out, good job. I don't know how they found the guy and the suspect, and your EP teams caught him. But that seemed to change everything immediately. I don't know if you need to speak to that. We don't really need to know all of those kind of details to make that whole more vulnerable, but I think that's key. And then the tracking that Commissioner Roman talked about, I think is crucial as well, is what happens with the arrests after? Are they charged with felonies? Did they go to jail? Is the DA prosecuting them? Because there's one thing that a lot of people seem to be forgetting is they're called shorts. If you even arrest people, and it's hard to arrest somebody and prosecute them, they get a 6-month jail sentence. On average, they spend 1 day in jail. That's huge. That's like, what are we doing? I mean, we got this misconception that when we get them and arrest them, that's it, we did it. And there's a huge problem with the whole foundation of that. If they just spend 1 day in jail, bam, here they are again.
Well, I think that leads just to a bigger issue of how our laws are currently written.
This is a big pocketing.
The catch and release.
Yeah. Do we, Director
No,
Rivas,
if they get prosecuted and they go to jail, they spend 1 day in jail. Did we all know that?
Yeah. Well, Director Rivas, do we need to vote?
Sure, it would be helpful to kind of have somebody make a motion that kind of reiterates. I mean, I did jot down some notes that Commissioner Roman had mentioned. So if that's the will of the commission, somebody can make a motion in terms of, directing staff to prepare a memo, excuse me.
I do want to make sure that we're on the same page on that first one, and just clarify so when we're voting, we know what we're voting on. And also clarify that I was trying to communicate what Commissioner Balbon communicated more clearly, which is that if we're recommending the type of scanner that verifies and records IDs, that it may or may not, depending on the business's individual decision, include that photograph addition.
It is up to them, yeah.
But
I think all of it's going to be up to them.
But what we're recommending is that type of scanner that scans, verifies, and records ID information.
I think that we shouldn't decide on patron scan. We should just have staff look into what are the options and kind of look for the best option and then recommend it to council. It doesn't have to be patron scan. It can just be like a deep dive into it. I mean, it's not our job to start researching which is the best system, but I think we should look into it. Yeah. So I think
you
we should
mention that.
Yeah.
And that's why that was the basis of the comment.
Look into the best system and let's implement it and let's encourage the bars and get the word out there. And even getting the word out to Beverly Hills and Santa Monica and LA and letting them all know that this is what we're doing and we should all join forces. So, and maybe it's patron scan, but maybe there's something even cooler out there that we don't know about.
Do we have someone that would like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion that staff puts together the memo based on, we don't have to go specifics, he heard all of it, of these recommendations that we have, and comes, should we say gets it to council, or do we need to look at it?
Yeah, we should look.
I think we should review it. I think, yes, once the memo
Can we
is
do it
authored.
fast?
Yeah, or maybe even the next meeting, the memo can be, we can talk about the memo in the next meeting, but this month you guys can put it together. And so the ideas, again, were the 4 that I mentioned, which I emailed over to you. And then I would even go as far as to say, like, in the entertainment district, we install some cameras. That we could use in case there's a crime committed or in case the police need to go, because the police are coming to businesses and asking for footage, and I'm sitting there and paying my employees to rewind stuff and make YouTube videos for the police, and there should be cameras out there recording stuff, especially just in that little area between Robertson and San Vicente on Santa Monica Boulevard, and have signs out like this area is under surveillance. And
Along our commercial corridors.
Yeah.
Do we need a second?
I would make one amendment, though, if we could, rather than put this off another month, because if we trust Director Rivas to take what we've said in the spirit of it, I mean, it's on. We'll have you'll have a recording to reference if there's any question, but that way we can get that to council and perhaps sooner rather than later.
As soon as possible, but I don't know how long it
fast.
takes you guys to do that, but get it out to us and.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I would like to have just specifics. I mean, I think it's important to just make sure, and I appreciate the confidence and the trust, but just making sure that that the commissioner do review similar to what we have done with the memo regarding the scooters. And so what I've heard this evening, right, in terms of my notes, is just that direct staff to prepare a memo that outlines. Looking into reviewing, assessing more or less an ID scanner, not necessarily patron scan, but that does have those same types of capabilities for a city to look at, maybe potentially offering a grant to businesses. And I heard voluntary a couple of times from some of the commissioners, right, in terms of the businesses that want to take advantage of this. The other item that I heard is to have more block by block and entertainment policing team deputies present during the Rainbow District. primarily in the hours between 11:30 and 2:30 a.m., 11:30 p.m. and 2:30 a.m. I think you referenced, Commissioner Roman, Thursday through...
I think Thursday through Sunday, that's
Through
when it's
Sunday.
busy out there.
Yeah.
And maybe even earlier on Sundays because they have Sunday fun day. So I don't know. I mean, the bars need to, I don't know these. I don't go out anymore, so I don't know when everybody's out there. But Sunday, I know everybody's out earlier. So whatever the hours are, we're open to. But I think that we need like a mandatory, we know that these two police officers are out these days and these 10 block by block are out. And they can go from business to business and introduce themselves, and that way if anybody needs them, they know where they are, and they're always there.
And that they can arrest, citizens arrest. I would like to say, however, if I know you're saying it's maybe not that easy, but it's the spirit of what we're trying to talk about. We want the block by block to be more than just like a scarecrow. They're just like they look like cops, but they can't do anything. You know, we want them to be able to do it like a citizen's arrest or something.
They should, I mean, and I talked to Shay about this, and I don't think he's that into it, but I think that we should look at the scope of work for block by block. They should have mace to protect themselves, and they should have handcuffs.
Yeah, so I think that's getting a little outside of the discussion that we have before us this evening. I'd like to just make mention, I was going to make mention of it during items from staff, is providing an update that at our next city council meeting, the city council will have an item that's going before them that will outline where we're at with the block by block residential detail component of the program, listing, training, et cetera. And so they'll be provided with that update and that direction. But I think sticking to what the commission had made mention of originally, based off of what my notes are here, I think the third item was getting bar owners to communicate with each other and kind of having that coordination and collaboration. The fourth item I had was seeing if there is a will to kind of connect and work with the FBI in terms of this, and that's something that we can speak with our West Hollywood Sheriff Station to see if maybe some of their special teams and bureaus have the capability of doing that, if they're willing to look into that.
And Apple, the manufacturer, as Commissioner Balbone brought up, to somebody somehow contact them to let them know this is targeting iPhones and people's personal information.
Sure.
One other amendment. It seems to me that the club owners are actually doing their own connections. One of the things I'd recommend is what can we do to facilitate more of that and help out? So just like a little tweak on that, because they have a connection already, it seems, based on what we discussed with them.
Absolutely, and that's definitely something that I think the city staff, community safety, along with the West Hollywood Sheriff Station, and block by block, whether it's putting it on some sort of regular schedule meeting to kind of check-ins, I think that would be important. So we can certainly add that too.
All right. So Director Rivas, are you good with this?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need to second the motion?
Yeah, that's what I'd asked. Do we need a second?
But just to be clear, the suggestions for block by block to amend the scope, that's not included in the memo, correct?
I don't know why it can't be. It's just a public safety update. These are things that we recommend to keep the city safer. Install cameras, look at the scope of work for block by block, just throw it in there. They can look at it and decide.
I don't see, I mean, if you're asking that block by block have the capability in terms of making citizens arrest on pickpocketing, this issue is focused on the pickpocketing. That's what the study session and community listening session. So is that what I'm hearing, that the commission feels comfortable as a whole making that recommendation?
That was not part of the listening session that we...
Yeah, we didn't
That
discuss
is correct.
that. Yeah, we did not discuss
We did not.
that. And I think that would have to be explored differently, correct?
Every other
or
part is-
separately.
Correct.
I think the scope, Danny, that you proposed was tight, focused. I don't think we give this up, but I think if we want to move forward with a recommendation based on what we convened, this keeps it concise, and I think it's actionable for council.
And it will continue to evolve. We know that. This is just a first move.
But it's a very positive first move, I think. So, yeah, I recommend we move forward. So we had a first, right? So I'll second.
Okay. Take a roll call.
Do we need a roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver?
Yes.
Commissioner Roman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Balbone?
Yes.
Chair Hallman?
Yes.
Also, Chair, we do have one speaker who wishes to speak on this item in chambers.
Okay.
Annie Jump Vicente?
Thank you for cutting the time for public to speak truth to power to 3 minutes to 2 minutes. I have the right to free speech. I did not state any slurs. Be insulted all you want. If you are offended by nonsensical curse words, you need to grow up. I have an academic background in planning and public policy, community sustainability, trauma-informed care 202 from LASA, and certified in architecture and engineering design. I worked for a city council member in LA. I was fired for speaking out for unhoused folks.
Excuse me, not to interrupt you, but
I'm not done.
No,
Excuse me. Then pause the time, please.
No.
Please pause the time.
Your comment is supposed to be on this agenda item. So are you commenting on
I'm about
this
to get
agenda
there.
item?
I'm getting there. And this is about public safety, is it not? Is it not about the study of pickpocketing?
Again, your comment is on this agenda item that we're discussing now.
I'm getting there. Can I state my background and why I should be listened to and heard? Thank you. I worked in homeless shelters during the height of the pandemic. I'd like to refer all of you to the former LASA director Heidi Marston's public letter of resignation. Commissioner Roman, keep advocating for mass surveillance. Appreciate it. Commissioner Berger, keep advocating arresting poor people. You're doing a great job. People with IDs are not welcome. Marginalized folks, BIPOC and trans folks, are disproportionately targeted because of the lack of access to the DMV. What I'm hearing today are more tools of oppression. What I hear is ways to keep poor people out of your spaces. I'd like to know what your plan is for people who do not have IDs and people who just want to eat a meal or drink. What I'm hearing is that people are not allowed to access public spaces without identification. What I hear is the owning class oppressing the working class. There is no DMV in the city of West Hollywood. There is one in Hollywood, but from my experience, attempting to get a license without a car, services such as Lime do not operate outside WeHo. How are people able to access spaces without IDs? Why have you not raised this question? This commission is a joke. You all are focused on protecting rich people and criminalizing poor people. You have no faith in public characters. You do not focus on public safety. I'm not even sure you understand what that means. I yield my time.
Okay, you need to leave chambers. No, you need to leave chambers. You were warned about your language before. It is not acceptable. I'm asking you to leave council chambers now.
What language did I just use? That was a curse word.
I'm asking you to be removed from chambers. This is not an option here.
All right, I'll get up. I'll get up. Thanks. None of you understand what public safety is.
So, can we move on? Item 8E, request tracking and commission calendar. Do any commissioners have comments on the commission's request tracking and calendar? If so, the staff liaison can probably answer the questions.
I did have a question. And Danny, you followed up with me, but I don't know that it's on here. Elevator safety.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that that one gets on here and tracked, and the specific follow-up is noted.
Mhm. Yes, and we did attempt to try to make contact with the resident, and so we'll attempt to do that again in terms of figuring out if we can get a little more information on the specifics of the situation that was brought forth before the commission, so that we can learn a little bit more. But it is my understanding that that building has been inspected a number of occasions in the past. I could not find anything as it relates to elevators specifically. So getting a little more background on that would be helpful, but so I will certainly add that to the list and follow up. Yeah.
Any additional commission questions? Okay, so we can move on. Our work plan. Do any commissioners have comments on the commission's work plan at this time? Commissioner Berger, are you good? I know you had mentioned something earlier that I thought was work plan related.
Yeah, what was that? It was... I don't remember what it was.
Okay. All right, so we can move on. New business.
I did have one question.
Oh,
on
apologies,
the work
sorry,
plan,
Vice Chair.
I do want to make sure that the nightlife safety is part of our focus. So I think we're a little bit out of order because I think you're going to make your comments, but I have a few comments and I want to make sure that we have, I'll just make them now. On the work plan, I want to make sure that we have another release of the drink testing strips and that we have a regular cycle and timing for that to happen. I also want to make sure that we get follow-up on the questions that were asked about, you know, what's the training, who's brought where, how that works. There are also reports that we have, but what's been changed is you don't know what locations. I think that would be good information to have, is which particular clubs are we seeing this at, or was it a club? Right now, the report that we have was changed to locations, and I think that's concerning. I don't know if there are other items that you're going to be following up on, but at least if nothing else, I'd like to make sure that the testing strips, we have a regular cadence for those to be, you know, released and established. Maybe we do it quarterly.
Anything else, Vice Chair, on the
No.
work plan? Commissioners, any other comments on our work plan? Okay. Moving on, the new business, revision to the commission's bylaws. Director Rivas, can you please first correct me on what I mentioned with missing 3 meetings so we're all on the same page?
Sure, absolutely, Chair. In the bylaws, current bylaws, what is listed, and I'll read it verbatim, and actually maybe it'd be helpful for me to even share the screen so that the commissioners and members of the public can view that. So give me a quick second here. There we go. Sorry, pressed the wrong button. The bylaws do list, and I'll start off answering your question, Chair, and then I'll go through what our proposed changes would be based off of what I heard consensus from the commission at our last meeting. So just give me a quick second here. And so I believe what you were referencing was section 3.9. Absences from meetings. So it does state pursuant to the municipal code that speaks directly to the Public Safety Commission. If there is an absent for any reason for more than 3 regular meetings, So I just want to, again, just highlight, it says more than, so.
More than? Okay. Thank you.
3 regular meetings in any 12-month period, then the office of such member shall be vacated. And so the city clerk, it's mentioning here, shall notify the city council of the vacancy and shall advertise for the replacement. So, so that's what I think you wanted me to clarify, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Director Rivas.
Sure.
But
yes,
we're talking about also with moving everybody to speak in the beginning of the meeting, right? Especially people we're paying to be here. So those people should go right away so we could get them in and out, and especially the people that are protecting our streets, and they should come in and out right away.
Well, I think, if I'm correct, our agency reports were earlier in the meeting.
We did place them, well, they were in the regular portions of the agenda. We just didn't have anything that really took a lot of time prior to, but to Commissioner Roman's point, part of the proposed changes that I'll get to here in this draft will be order of business. And so that is what we are essentially would be proposing to the City Council to make changes, because this is something that does need to be codified through the City Council. And so that is something that we can discuss this evening, about making that more permanent as opposed to, you know, having the commission like we did at the last commission meeting where we had a couple of items that were placed before the monthly reports, of having somebody make a motion on the commission, and we would have to continue that practice until this ultimately went before the City Council and got changed.
So
Does that make sense before I move forward?
Basically the way we followed tonight.
Say again.
It's formalizing the way we prioritize tonight, and any new items would be placed after those unfinished business items that are the reports, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It's good, yeah. So the first area or section, and we highlighted the sections there, and you can see the track changes, is to section 2.1, which would be regular meetings. So we brought forth before the commission on whether there was consideration to have the meeting start earlier rather than what's reflected on our bylaws currently. So that is 6 p.m. as opposed to 6:30. So we're also recommending that there be a change, obviously, which has already occurred, for the meetings to occur here in the City Council chambers at the West Hollywood Public Meeting Room. So that is just simply an update that needs to be made to the bylaws, but direction was already provided, and obviously we are meeting here this evening and have been. So are there any questions regarding kind of the regular meetings? No. Okay, great.
I think, did we also discuss, correct me again if I'm wrong, that our meetings should adjourn no later than 10:30, but we have a 10 p.m. check-in?
Yeah, so that is listed. It's a little further on down in the track changes that I have here. But yes, Chair, to answer your question, there is consideration to conclude the meetings earlier, based on the fact that we're requesting to start the meetings earlier. So I'm just scrolling down here. So the next section would be 4.4, order of business. To Commissioner Roman's point a little earlier, we are recommending a few changes. And so right now we would follow currently what we have in place, which is number 1 listed on our current agenda is the call to order, roll call. That will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, approval of the agenda, and then followed by approval of the minutes. Currently, there's in parentheses language that states unless approved on the consent calendar. The commission historically has not ever done that, so we would just stick to what we've normally done. So I think excluding that language would be part of the recommendation that I would propose to the commission to consider. Number 5 would be our public comments on consent calendar and matters not on the agenda. That would not change whatsoever. And then what we would be proposing, which would be something new, would be to place the public safety monthly reports. And so I would look at the public safety monthly reports to include, right, fire, sheriffs, and block by block, right?
I would suggest flipping So after number 4, then it's the public safety monthly reports, because that public comments takes a really long time.
Yeah, and
so
if
we're
that's the
losing
will
like
of the
an hour
commission,
right
we
there.
can, yeah, we can certainly propose that if that's the will of the commission.
Well, for me, the problem with that is the public may want to say something, and then you have the sheriffs that can then reply to them.
Do they do that? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, they do.
I'm sure it has.
They bring things up,
Yeah.
and
I don't
then
know how often, but I'm sure that it probably has. Yeah.
Actually, though, they could then, instead of a general comment, they could comment on that specific thing, like the sheriff's report.
And I think one thing to make mention, you can see in parentheses here under public comment, it states that 20 minutes total. So that is the will of the chair at the time of the commission. If we are having a number of speakers coming in attendance to speak on at the Public Safety Commission, you can certainly hold to that 20 minutes and then ask whatever speakers have not been heard at that time to then participate at the second public comment portion.
That sounds agreeable to me.
Okay.
But again, I think it's good as we're going through this, right? I'm sure the commissioners, you all are viewing this, these order of business that's reflected in the bylaws. So I think it's important for us to all kind of remember that and hold ourselves accountable, of course, if there are speakers that are coming in, to make sure that we're adhering to the 20 minutes and asking folks to, speak at the second public comment. Vice Chair Lobo.
So I've never seen us have a consent calendar on the agenda. Do we need to have a consent calendar if we've never had one?
I seen an item, and originally it was the dockless mobility update. When it originally came before the commission, that was placed on consent because there wasn't any actionable item. It was simply an update. So that would be more or less kind of the area to place those types of agendas, but yeah.
There's some type of update that the city wants to provide to all commissions and we opt not to speak about it, we can put it on consent either at the meeting or before the meeting.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Item number 7 originally was public hearings, but the Public Safety Commission never has public hearings. They are not a quasi-judicial body. They don't have licenses, permits, et cetera, like the Planning Commission, Business License Commission have before them. And so that would be something that we would be removing from the order of business. And then you'll see that further on down in the bylaws that would be removed as well. The next 2 items would basically be flip-flopped. And so typically you would always have an unfinished business item come before a new business item. And so we would follow that practice by just simply reversing those 2, if that made sense. And then excluded consent to Vice Chair Babone's point, that would be something that we would remove completely. Looking back at a lot of the Public Safety Commission agendas, I couldn't find anything that was on the excluded consent. I think everything would be capable of being captured with the changes that we're proposing. And then we would keep items from staff. Public comments portion would be the second item 11 now, and then items from commissioners, and then adjournment. One of the things that I wanted to bring forth, though, before the commission that is a change that we chatted about last time is currently the way that the agendas have been prepared. You have two items from commissioner sections. The current bylaws do not have that as written, and so we're not proposing making any changes. So again, I just want to bring that before the commission's attention now, because typically what you'll see on our current agenda is items from commissioners after public comment, and then you're seeing it again right after items from staff. So we would just be keeping to what's being reflected here. So I just wanted to bring that up again to the commissioners.
I think we could try it that way. We can always change it back, right?
it's not good practice to continually, make changes because you got to codify it and take it forward, and there's a process. But yes, Commissioner Berger, we could, yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Director Rios?
Yes. So just scrolling down here, I want to make sure I don't include or miss anything. So public comments, I highlighted here, we're not proposing any changes, but I know that was brought up at least in one occasion from commission or a commissioner in terms of the time period allocated. But as written in here, you do have the flexibility of limiting or extending public comment. So it is reflected in here. But I just wanted to bring it up to the commission. Do you want to leave this as is, or would you want to propose any changes to the public comment length of time?
Is it 3 minutes for council?
I believe, is council 3 or 2? I think they're 2 minutes.
I think we should go to 2. And then you can always extend.
Extend it.
I believe city council is 3 minutes, but we can verify. Maybe you can look up Jessica.
I suggest whatever council does.
Jessica's going to look that up, and then she can get back to that. So I have section 7.3 that's on the screen. This is the public hearing section. And so again, this is something that we would be requesting to completely remove. And then, give me a second as I'm scrolling down, because we are removing section 7.3, the sections that follow that section would simply just be renumbered. So now the rules of decorum, nothing would change in regards to that, but instead of it being 7.4, it would now be 7.3. Rules for city staff, all of that would again just be updated. But again, no language change or proposal whatsoever. And then to the chair's question a little early on about adjournment of meetings. So currently, because the meetings and the bylaws state that we begin our meetings at 6:30, the commission meeting shall adjourn no later than 10:30. So we're requesting that earlier conclusion of 30 minutes, right? No differently than we're doing on the beginning of the meeting. And so one of the other sentences here to just make mention is that it is stating that the Public Safety Commission meeting shall adjourn no later than the time listed. So what we're proposing would be 10 p.m. But the commission may, by majority, and so I just want to point all the commissioners to the last sentence there, vote to extend the meeting beyond 10 p.m. in order to complete more of its agenda. So again, if there's an important discussion, something that is occurring, there would be a hard stop right at the 10 p.m. But if for whatever reason the will of the commission majority by vote wanted to continue on with the meeting, then you could do that.
Okay.
And amendments to bylaws. Basically, what I had mentioned a little earlier is that these bylaws may not be amended unless the proposed amendment has been presented to and approved by the city council. So if the commission is satisfied with the recommendations that are being provided here and that we discussed at the last commission meeting, then we can certainly make these proposed amendment recommendations. The first step in the process would be city staff bringing it forth to the city clerk's office. And then the city clerk, I know, is currently also looking at other commission bylaws and advisory board bylaws. And so hopefully this could be something that they could be placed on the agenda sometime in October. And then, having that ratified and codified. And, as soon as I would have a kind of a set time frame for everyone, I would report back to the commission on when this would be taking effect.
Okay, thank you. And were we just waiting for our commission secretary to locate something that we needed to include?
And I just got confirmation. It is 2 minutes. It is 2 minutes. So I stand corrected. So thank you for asking the question and bringing that up. So it is 2 minutes. So let me get back up to our public comment portion. And so if it is, again, the will of the commission, I can make that adjustment now in terms of being consistent with the city council.
I will just say my preference is that the public gets the same time limit we do. So if we think 3 minutes is difficult, then we should give the public 3 minutes. It's our discretion if we have a group of people lined up in the chambers and or on Zoom to change that, just like the council sometimes does. But I'd prefer to keep it equal. I mean, we're here to listen to people about their safety concerns. That's my preference, but.
I suggest staying consistent with council, and the chair can extend if you want to extend, if we didn't feel like we heard them enough.
I agree with Commissioner Balbone. Our meetings do go long, but I don't think that the public comment is the main culprit in that. I think we can kind of trim some of the rest of the meeting. And it leaves the option to reduce that if we have that line.
So Director Rivas, just so I'm understanding, if we leave public comments at 3 minutes, but let's say we have a lot of public comments in chambers as well as in queue, we can reduce the speaking time for that meeting?
You can.
That is correct.
Okay.
And then the other thing I would change if it's 3 minutes is just to change that 20 to 21 minutes, just so that it's in the beginning of the meeting for public comment, just so that it's possible, divisible by 3.
So I'm sorry, so you would the commission would want to maintain the 3 minute?
I think so. I think we're in agreement, or the majority of us, to keep it at 3? Okay.
That's fine.
Are we going to go one by one on these?
No, I think we have a record of what's there, because I didn't propose any of those changes. I simply highlighted that just to bring it up before the commission. But
the only thing, so the end time, it's still a 4-hour meeting if it's 10 p.m., which was it the original time limit set was 4 hours? Was it 6:30 to 10:30?
Mm-hmm.
It was, yeah.
And then do we want to keep it at a 4-hour meeting as the standard, or do we want to strive to keep these a little more concise, not for our time as commissioners, but for the public's time? If somebody wants to participate in the whole meeting, that it's not a 4+ hour meeting unless it's warranted for that.
Well, again, my objective is to tighten our meeting time. Obviously, if there's a pressing issue that we need to extend our meetings, I think we would probably all be in agreement, but I really don't think we need to be here past 9.
3 hours.
Let's do 3-hour meetings, and then we can extend.
And then we can say, because you guys made a fit. I mean, when you do that hard stop, everybody gets concise. Then you can extend. So we always have the option to extend.
Yeah.
3 hours, perfect.
I'm sorry.
What were you going to say, Commissioner Oliver?
Could we also specify the number of minutes when the meeting's extended and we take a vote? Like if it's consensus to extend 20 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes, that way there's a set time, not just broadly extend.
Well, I would think that probably the best would be 30 minutes. I mean, it's not going to do anyone any good if we only extend 15 minutes. So.
Yeah, so 30-minute intervals, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And I've also experienced other meetings, and I think the LGBTQIA advisory board that's now a commission, they do a nice job of, do we want to extend? If we extend, we're going to finish this topic and checking in.
Mm-hmm.
And they say no sometimes, and they're just done. And I think that's good. So I don't know that we have to say it's 30 minutes. We can say it's 15 minutes. So I think it gives us latitude to do what we think makes sense.
Okay. Director Rivas, are you good?
So I'm hearing, just to recap on that, you would want to add adjournment of meetings like 30-minute intervals? Is that what I'm hearing, or no? Or that would just be a consensus amongst the commission?
Yeah, is that what you're saying, Vice Chair, or?
I think we can say 30 minutes or no more than 30 minutes.
I think no more than 30
No more
minutes.
than 30 minutes.
And then it also, if we're on an item, it kind of gives us another time limit.
And so, I'm sorry, did you want to maintain the 10 p.m. or did you want to stop? It's 9 p.m.
9, yeah, 9.
Okay, all right. And just so the commission knows, what I am going to do is I will consult, obviously, with the city clerk because they will be bringing forth these items. So if there's happens to be something that potentially doesn't fall in line with their standard practice, then I will certainly report back to the rest of the commission, via email as soon as possible, and I'm letting everybody know where we're at, if that's okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
And are they gonna possibly amend the bylaws and the code of conduct? Actually, even our purview, I feel like there's a lot of, it's wordy, there's duplication in those. Are they gonna go through those and just?
Yeah, so the great question, Commissioner Berger. I do know that the City Council brought forth an item recently to take a look at the purview of the commissions and advisory boards. So to answer your question, yes, I don't know what the timeline is for that, but I can certainly ask the city clerk kind of what's in motion and what's scheduled for that.
Any additional changes we need to address?
No, I think I'm good in terms of what we have here, and certainly we have the recording and we'll have the minutes to kind of refer back to. And so, as I mentioned, I'll be speaking with the city clerk on kind of next steps and seeing if all these things jive in terms of standard practice, and then I'll report back to the commission prior to next month's meeting via email with an update on where we're at, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Director Rivas. Can we move on to item 10? Any updates from staff?
Yes, there are a couple of updates. I do have the security ambassador chart. I just wanted to point out a couple of changes that you may or may not have noticed to some of the monthly reports, both by the West Hollywood Sheriff Station as well as the security ambassadors. And so I do know that the commissioners did ask for scooter dockless mobility information in terms of how many scooters had been relocated by our block-by-block security ambassadors. And so I just want to point, as I'm hovering over the arrow here, showing that was captured for last month in July. And then you're also seeing for the month of August, we're at 171 for that month. And then in addition to that, there was a quest, right, to have our contracted providers that from our parking services and long-range planning. They're referred to as ABM, and so ABM does go out and about, and I do have numbers from them that came in at 171. For the month of August. We don't have it on the report, but what we'll be working on is maybe pulling the scooter information from the security ambassadors and the monthly reports that we'll be getting from ABM, and then maybe we'll just do a chart that has the both of them there.
Did you say AD as in dog or B?
No, B as in boy.
I understood that was a contractor, but you're saying that's a contractor?
It is a contractor, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So our parking services division at the city oversees that contract, has that contract with the folks. And so they are driving around the city 7 days a week at different times. And their focus is looking for scooters to relocate, right? And then place them back. So yeah, similar to what the security ambassadors are doing, although the security ambassadors are not taking the scooters to the designated parking areas. As they're walking or doing bike patrols or coming before the scooters, if they see something, right, that is leaning over, blocking and causing an impediment in the sidewalk, then they're picking that up and put it in a safer location than it is. And so that's what's being reflected here in the report. I also wanted to share as well some data that we're putting together. This is the graph that we actually had created for our pickpocketing study session. And so we had two different graphs, but we're beginning to work on pulling all the information from the West Hollywood Sheriff Station. And so what you're seeing before you here is something that is reflected in the monthly report. The monthly report provides you with a year-to-date. That's calendar year. And so this is going back, though, to 2016. And so we reference the public safety monthly reports, where we're at, the year-to-date reports. And so you can see from this chart here that, back in 2016, from January to August, this was the total number of calls for service. That increased in 2017. It again increased in 2018, and then it decreased in 2019. And then we've seen it dip even further in 2020 as a result of the pandemic. And then it looked like it obviously decreased in 2021. And then you can see for this calendar year to date, it's at 14,641. But if you look back at 2019, 2019 numbers were higher than where we're at currently. As well as 2018, 2017, and 2016. So we want to start providing this type of line chart. Hopefully it'll be helpful for the commission and members of the public to see the increases and decreases every month. It is time consuming to put these charts together in terms of looking at the information. I wish I could report that it's more automated, but it is not. This is the information that's being shared, obviously, with us in the monthly reports that you all have before you and that you're accustomed on a monthly basis. But we are working to try to streamline this to provide, the commission and again the members of the public with a good visual in terms of seeing kind of the increase, decrease information. One of the other charts, so this is again just kind of the year to date, so it's monthly, right, January to August. But on this chart here, this is showing an annual total comparison, right? So for the entire year. So looking at, we just looked at from a month to month into August, you can see again, just looking at 2016, 2017, calls for service increasing, again in 2018, and then it decreasing, right, 2019, 2020, and then picking up in 2021. Now for 2022, because we're not at the end of the year, what we did provide, and you can see down below here in parentheses, we put estimate. And so what we did is we took, right, the numbers that were at the above chart for 8 months. We divided that total number by 8, right, to get our average, and then we applied that average to the 8 months that we had, right, in the previous chart, and that's where we're estimating and/or projecting that this is where the total calls for service would look like or get close to. So I just kind of wanted to explain the thought process behind that in terms of projecting. It obviously is not going to be at 21,962. We're hoping obviously that the trend continues downwards. And so it will be continuing to be much less, right, on an average basis as we get closer to the end of the year. Any questions from the commission or input feedback? I would love to hear from anybody if you feel that this is helpful for us to break down not only the total calls for service, but once we kind of get this dialed in, the idea is to also extend that to our Part 1 crimes. It gets a little more tedious in terms of the numbers, pulling that out, and even if we were to try to do that for Part 2, but I'm just, again, I'm just want to be cognizant of the amount of time that it's taking to put these together, as again, this is hard numbers that we're getting from what the sheriffs are providing in terms of the reports that we're used to, and then we're plugging in those numbers, right? We're cross-referencing and plugging them in into this chart, into this graph to formulate it.
Do you have interns that are doing this?
No, we don't. But I'm glad you mentioned that, Commissioner Roman, because we did get an approval for an intern. So we need to recruit for that position. We're recruiting for some other positions. But I wanted to bring this before you all, as we had mentioned that we're looking at maybe adding and changing to maybe a different way for folks to kind of see the information. So
is there like this should be pretty doable. You can put a middle piece in there. I mean, when they give it to you, there's a way to automate this pretty easy into your system, like with an XML file or something like this, just so you know. I mean, we can talk about that offline. Some of the things that I'm interested in is like looking at this is good, but I would like to look like what other causes some of these things are. Like in 2015, 2016, those props came, different props, they changed misdemeanors to felonies. That would be some things we'd have to really look at this. Also, like the reporting of crimes, I think there's a way that we can look like at some of these forums like nextdoor.com I've seen that go way up, yet the reporting hasn't gone up. And there's a way that you can actually capture that data from those. I just want to throw that out there so we get a better reflection of what's really happening out here.
Before you answer, Director Rivas, I just wanted the record to reflect that Commissioner Roman does need to depart now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're pretty much done. I just wanted to showcase that, kind of let the commission know, what's being worked on. We provided that for the pickpocketing, the same chart, and so I think it's useful again to just kind of see the increases and decreases.
No, I think this is amazing. I think this is really great. Thank you very much.
I really like this. One of the things that I think is really helpful when we're seeing trends in the city is to see the reports by Part 1 crime for, say, 18, 24 months trending like this. So I get that going backward to like 18, 17, this is a great view and this is enough. But to actually see what crimes are trending up and where we're seeing ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys over time, seeing those Part 1s in exactly this way but month to month is really helpful.
Got it. We'll definitely take that. Thank you. We'll continue to work at creating that information. The difficulty with the Part 1 crimes is because you have so many categories, right, that you see. And so the more categories, right, obviously that you add to the columns, it starts getting real convoluted and clustered. And so it's kind of difficult to kind of view that. But maybe, we can figure out some way if we're seeing maybe the most commonly reported, and there are items as I've looked at the reports and been working on this, I certainly have seen trends in certain categories. And so maybe it's important for us to, even if we highlight maybe the top 5 or the top 3, I don't know, right? Things that we're consistently kind of seeing that are flowing up and down, but we'll continue to plug away at it and add as many of them as we can.
I just want to mention too that Commissioner Soon-Shiong seemed to have like some ideas of, I would really like to hear from those things that she didn't feel like this was accurate, a good way of reporting, and to get her input on this, I think would be really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the other reports that also were notated is our Part 2 crimes, or that had changed. We did work with the sheriff's station, and they did provide a West, Center, and East column breakdown, as well as the total that's in there. And so that, again, would be helpful kind of moving forward, right, to kind of see where we're seeing also the Part 2 crimes, similar to the Part 1 crimes, in what areas of the city as well. And then we're also working on a map, a heat map, in terms of placing kind of where these items are occurring in the city. But we're coming up with some obstacles and some challenges, but we're just going to keep plugging away and working on it. So.
Okay.
And then let me.
And you're going to coordinate something similar with block by block, right? The reporting is going to be
Yes, yeah, and thank you for that, Chair Berger. And so I think you made a comment, right, in terms of establishing performance metrics and capturing data. And so all of that we're certainly going to be doing and adding when the implementation of the expansion occurs. And so when that does happen, we'll make sure to we are already kind of breaking down, looking at recommendations that are being proposed both by block, and then us taking a look at that and adding to be able to capture the success of the program and the effectiveness overall. And then lastly, I just wanted to make an announcement that September is National Preparedness Month, and I did send an email out to the Commission regarding the various trainings. Sergeant Yost from West Hollywood Sheriff Station did mention the Community Academy and the CERT training that's being offered. And so we did extend that to the Commission. I know there is a 7-week commitment in terms of that. We will also be communicating that to all of our neighborhood block captains and resident association groups as well. We did have a meeting with our resident association and neighborhood block captains late last month. It was a very successful meeting. Great participation, and so we're going to be setting a quarterly meeting with all of the group representatives, leaderships of those groups at their request based off of their input and feedback. And so we are going to be extending this training to them to participate. The kickoff is September 20th for the CERT program and September 21st, so it's just around the corner. So we're going to be pushing that out through a press release. But Jessica will be sending an email out to all of those groups tomorrow. And then in terms of the National Emergency Preparedness Month, we've heard from community members, we've heard from the Commission, we've heard from the City Council in terms of providing additional training as well, right, to our community members. So we did establish a contract with a consultant, and so we are going to be having that training will be on Saturday, September 24th. It will be located here in the council chambers at West Hollywood Park, and it's going to start at 3 p.m. A press release did go out today regarding this event for the entire community, and so we invite everybody who's watching this evening, and we'll also be sending out an email to all the neighborhood watch groups, the resident associations tomorrow as well, notifying them about this training. It is free of cost. We are asking folks to RSVP, and again, we did extend that to the Commission as well to attend. So it should be a 1-hour session with additional time after that for Q&A with the consultant. So that concludes my update and report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you. Any questions, Commissioners?
I'm going to go back to nightlife safety. 2 things on that. One is there was a communication plan around that whole testing strips and everything else that was supposed to be planned, and I haven't seen an update on that. And then there were several follow-up items, including understanding, do we need more deputy attention to help solve some of the cases that are pending? Do we feel like that's enough? And I'm just curious, what are the next steps on that? Because there were a lot of action items at the end, and I haven't seen a summary come out.
Yeah, there was, and thank you for asking that question, Vice Chair. So yes, there will be an email that will be sent to all the representatives that attended, so including yourself, right, as a representative, and Commissioner Steele. So you should be seeing that in the coming weeks. There was a lot of review and assessing that meeting because there were a number of directives, a number of ideas that came out of that meeting, as you mentioned. And so a draft of all of what was directed and mentioned during that meeting, again, will be sent to the City Council and all the representatives that were in attendance. So you should be seeing that in the coming weeks. And then getting any sort of input feedback from those that were in attendance in terms of anything that may have been missed that's not on that draft. And then that will be solidified before the City Council in terms of the update. And then, obviously assigning which departments will be responsible for following through with those directives, or at least obviously looking into those ideas and directives that were mentioned.
Some of those had more urgency than others. Is there follow-up happening on some of the specific items that related to pending cases?
In terms of cases, if you're referring to any sort of criminal investigations, the only thing I can report is that updates have been provided, but I'm unable to provide any additional information regarding that.
That's fine. As long as those updates have been provided, that's something that I just don't think is, I think there's more time sensitivity to something like that. And they don't have to be given to me, but as long as the people involved have been updated. Thank you.
Anything else, Director Rivas?
No, that is it.
Okay. As we draw to a close, Commission Secretary, do we have any public comments?
We don't have any in chambers. Do we have any in Zoom?
We do have the same phone number that was on at last public comment, so I'll just switch over and we will do just a final ask to see whether or not the phone number that called in ending in 9424, if you wish to speak during public comment, you're more than capable of pressing *6 to unmute yourself, stating your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. So Chair and Commission, I don't believe that person wishes to speak.
Great, thank you. So we can move on to items from commissioners. Commissioners, do we have any additional comments at this time?
I just want to see about the train. You guys going to get a hold of us for the training like tomorrow or whatever that we are kind of RSVP to? Okay, yeah.
Vice Chair Valbonne?
Nothing.
Okay, so we are adjourned. Our next Public Safety Commission meeting is October 10th, Monday at 6 p.m.